12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
And we're off and running on a Thursday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us. Along with James Westling, I am Ari Tepkin. Are you wearing Arizona Wildcat shorts today?
You better believe it.
Wow.
Just let me know when you're ready for the fashion show, because these are authentic 2001 Arizona Wildcats basketball shorts.
Is that where you confused at the store when you were younger and thought they were Kansas State shorts, Wildcat shorts? You saw Cats and thought, oh, I should get these K-State shorts? Is that what happened?
No. Rest in peace to East Bay magazine.
Of course, yeah.
The GOAT, the real MVP. No, in middle school and high school, I was obsessed with just collecting random apparel from random teams. And so every time we got a new East Bay magazine delivered to our doorstep, I went thumbing through it and tried to pick out my next pair of shorts. So I have a bunch of random teams. But also, I really loved Arizona basketball because 1997, they took out my arch nemesis, Kansas. And then in 2001 with Jason Gardner and Gilbert Arenas and Channing Frye. Now, back then, the style was to buy them about 3 sizes too big.
Yeah,
so
I could tell.
These are an XL and still don't fit me to this day. I've got about 3 rolls going on these bad boys. These wouldn't fit Gilbert Arenas if he joined us in studio. They would not fit Channing Frye if he were to put these on.
No, yeah.
And I'm about 40 pounds heavier than I was back then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were real big and baggy.
That's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We've got Will Connerly producing today's show in studio. We are going to be out in Indianapolis for the Final Four. In fact, tomorrow's show will be a lot of interviews that we've done relative to the Final Four with Arizona, because we will be en route to Indianapolis tomorrow morning in order to get there for a locker room session with Arizona Friday afternoon to bring you the latest and greatest content, interviews, access. We are bringing you front and center to Indianapolis with us, with the Big 12 being highlighted, of course, in the Arizona Wildcats in the Final Four. And I'm hugely excited to go, but also hugely excited about Arizona, because if Arizona wins the national championship, I will win my bracket.
Ooh. This bracket?
No.
A bracket pool, or you're just saying because Arizona wins the championship?
A bracket pool.
A bracket pool?
Yes.
But not this one.
I stand to win a couple of shekels,
Okay.
if you will,
Okay.
if Arizona wins. So, fingers crossed, Arizona gets it done. I think they're still the best team left in the field. It's the reason I picked Arizona to win it all. Did pick Houston to win it all, and they came so close last year. But Arizona, I think, gets it done this year. We are presented by Modelo. Cheers to all you Modelo full-time fans. Modelo full-time fan rules. Rule number 86, you believe fandom is earned, not rented. It's a good one.
It is earned. It's not rented. We don't do bandwagon fanship at Modelo.
You don't just show up with rent.
No.
No.
By the way, Arizona's got to bring back these red alternates. This was a big deal because now they just wear their traditional whites at home and the navy on the road. But back in the early 2000s.
No, you're right. They were red.
They rocked these sick red alternates. So the shorts are red. They're the alternate version. But also, in terms of the Final Four and just our excitement level, which, as you can tell, is through the roof, we are going to witness, I believe, one of the best Final Four games of all time. When you look at the parallels between Michigan and Arizona, their dominance when it comes to the net rating and all the KenPom numbers and basketball being at its finest right now at the top, the sport collectively. So you have an uptick just in terms of the amount of talent that's in the sport overall, and then you take 2 of the best 4 teams at the very top, maybe the top 2 teams in the country, and you pair them together in the semifinals. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a pre-Final Four show. It's going to be
Saturday from 3 to 4:30 Central Time, which will be 4 to 5:30 Eastern Time, ramping up to tip off between Arizona and Michigan. So who knows who we'll be chatting with on Saturday, because we're going to be at the team hotel and there will be alumni and high-level donors and families of the players and coaches all right there in that spot. I know Jason Gardner's going to be in the house. He actually lives in Indianapolis, the Arizona legend from that 2001 game, so I'm hoping we can catch him. I am very stressed about the media session tomorrow at 1 o'clock that we are racing to get to because it's locker room access. Are we going to be at a table? Are we going to have sit-down interviews? Like, I know we will have the content, but T-Chains has failed to inform us. Will we be with our phones, like voice memoing it with a group of reporters, or are we going to have our own setup? TBD, but the bottom line is we'll have some banger content.
Yeah, no, exactly. Super excited. We're roughly 61 hours away from tip-off for the main event, Michigan-Arizona. By the way, it doesn't matter now, but pretty clear evidence here that either Michigan or Arizona should have been the number one overall seed in this tournament and not Duke, which would most likely then have these two teams matching up in the national championship, which is how it should be. But I digress. Here we are. We're also about 58 hours or so away from tip-off of the appetizer, Yukon and Illinois. Super glad, though, that Michigan-Arizona is the main course, the main event, because it feels like it is absolutely the main event. We've got a lot to get to today on today's show. We're going to be talking about kind of the biggest storylines within this game that nobody's talking about. Plus, we're going to visit with Jason Scheer from Wildcat Authority. That's all on the way on today's show. We're also going to go behind enemy lines to talk a little Michigan basketball with Anthony Broom, who covers the Wolverines for Wolverine on 3. But can I tell you something? Do you watch Jeopardy?
Sometimes. I'm not a huge Jeopardy guy, but I mean, I'm familiar with it. Yeah, I've watched it from time to time, but I know a lot of people were obsessed and would not miss an episode. I wasn't that guy.
Okay. Can I tell you how analytics has ruined Jeopardy?
Yes.
Okay. So, Jeopardy, you've got categories, right? And then for every category, you've got a dollar amount. So there's 200, 400, 600, right? It just goes up. And then Double Jeopardy is 400, 800, 1,200, 1,600, 2,000, right? In Double Jeopardy. So back when Alex Trebek hosted, they would go within a category top down. So you go to a category and you go $200 first. Then you go $400, right? So you work your way down the category. Well, now Ken Jennings, who won like $1 million in a row, took over as the Jeopardy host for Alex Trebek after Alex's passing, of course. And it's, I think, an analytical decision by contestants. They go bottom up in a category. Mm-hmm. So it used to be you always went top down. Sometimes you'd have a random guy that might go middle, but for the most part, it was always top down. Now you go bottom up, and it bothers me to no end. And so the reason why it's, quote-unquote, the right analytical choice is the reason it bothers me. And that is sometimes the categories you have to ease in because you don't know exactly what the category is asking.
Right.
Because the questions could be specific to the category title, right? So that you ease yourself in and get a better sense of what the category is asking you to say. Well, the analytically sound decision, I guess, would be to go bottom down so that you don't give the other people a chance to ease into those categories. You could have the first stab at the hardest question, but I hate it. Everybody now goes bottom up, and it just feels like the best commentary on what's happening in the world today more than anything else.
Yeah.
We live in a bottom-up society, not a top-down society.
Right.
I don't know what that means, but it feels like it makes a lot of sense in Jeopardy.
No, it does. And I would think just on the surface, it makes more sense to me to ease your way in. Like, it feels like you want to play that 16 seed in the first round.
Yeah.
You don't want to start with a 1 seed.
Well, especially with some of the categories that are like, I don't really know how to answer these questions because the questions are confusing unless you know what the category is asking.
Arthur Chu in 2014 was the first contestant to systematically hunt daily doubles instead of playing top to bottom. Then a few more started to do it, and now, to your point, it's at the point where everybody's doing it.
And so it's, I guess, more analytically sound because you're going to find more daily doubles when you go bottom up. I don't know. Maybe they found that there's more daily doubles in the larger amount categories than there are in the smaller amount categories.
Are you, like, can you name some of the most famous Jeopardy contestants?
Well, Ken Jennings.
Yeah. Outside of Ken.
No.
Okay. I mean, me neither. but this James Holzhauer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Is that another name that rings a bell?
Yes.
So he kind of went into it with like a poker/sports betting approach where he maximized expected value. He attacked the board in very strategic ways, which there is a parallel with sports because of just the creativity that coaches and programs are operating with. I mean, Tommy Lloyd built this Arizona team very differently because he saw a market inefficiency, a weakness when it comes to the sport collectively. He sees it trending towards threes and layups in this NBA model, and he said, no, we're just going to get a bunch of big physical dudes, pound the paint. Oh, and we're capable of shooting the three when we need to. Like, Arizona's actually shooting since March 1st, so a full month and a day, 40% from three as a team. That would be one of the better regular season marks in the entire country. So the last month of the season, they've had a major uptick in their three-point shooting. So it's not like they're not shooting threes in practice. Like, I've been to an Arizona practice. They shoot as many threes as anybody. They just are more selective with their shots.
That's
much
awesome.
Like Ken Jennings at a Jeopardy board.
That's awesome. And by the way, this actually works on the defensive end too, and we'll get into that coming up in a little bit when we get into some of the most important storylines that nobody's talking about with this Final Four matchup between Michigan and Arizona. But as you look deeper on their defensive numbers, it's not just that they don't shoot as many threes; they're actually taking advantage of teams defensively, and high volume 3-point shooting. We'll get into that coming up because I think it's really interesting as well. We got the official announcement. We didn't know in the 24 to 48 hours following Kansas's elimination in the NCAA tournament from St. John's what the future of Bill Self would hold. There have been a lot of rumors about Tyron Stokes, the number one player in the 2026 class, and you'd think that Stokes' commitment to Kansas would be tied to Bill Self returning, and perhaps this is the first domino to fall now in the Tyron Stokes' commitment to Kansas, as Bill Self has committed to the upcoming season. In fact, Kansas yesterday, KU Hoops official Twitter account tweets, "This account will not be acknowledging nor participating in April Fool's Day, ... We tell you this because ... And then the next tweet was, "He's not going anywhere," a statement from Bill Self. So they released it on April 1st, but had to do the pre-tweet to say this is not an April Fool's joke, this is real. And that statement is, "Jayhawk Nation, with renewed clarity and the ongoing support from our administration, I remain focused and committed to Kansas basketball competing for a national championship. I look forward to seeing and hearing the best fans in college basketball next season at Allen Fieldhouse."
Yeah, we are, pretty fresh off of what was a very big news day yesterday in the world of sports, and deciphering what was real and what was spam was very difficult for me last night. By the way, Arizona State football with another banger. Remember last year on April Fool's Day, they said that they were going to have that maroon field?
Yes.
And then yesterday, they're adding a pool. They're adding a whole pool deck to Sun Devil Stadium.
Okay, that's a way better idea than a maroon field.
I like both. But yes, the pool's awesome. And the Jacksonville Jaguars actually did have a pool. They're going to move to Orlando for a couple of years, and then they're going to bring back that pool deck setup in an even better fashion. But I almost bought that one. I was like, okay.
That's all right, yeah.
Pool deck, let's go. But yeah, Bill Self, he wins that national championship in 2022, and I know, KU's 68-35 in those last three seasons, including this most recent one. It's the first time that KU's had a stretch like this since the 80s, so it's been a minute. But Bill Self, if his health is okay, I still think he's determined to make another run at a national championship. And I look at Kansas, and I know Peterson's gone, but Dunga's probably on the fence. He's late first, maybe early to mid second round. His looming decision of does he come back or does he go pro, I think is massive. But then also,
by the way, I don't think it's binary, come back or go pro. I think it also could be enter the portal.
Because remember last year he did enter the portal, and Indiana threw a bunch of money at him. He ultimately returned to Kansas. Indiana could really use him. He's from that state. Maybe he considers that. But also outside of that, KU has a lot of underclassmen who are kind of developmental pieces that I don't know that they're going to get better market value elsewhere in terms of what KU can pay. Like KU's budget's going to be north of $10 million. The portal opens on April 7th, so we're 5 days away from the madness that will be the transfer portal. If Kansas can retain some of these pieces with the class that they have coming in next year, this year's class with Peterson was 16th in the country. Next year's class without Stokes yet is top 3 nationally. They are going to be loaded next year in terms of one-and-done talent.
I will say I expect Kansas's roster to look a lot different next year. I'm not sure anybody from last year's team will be back. Maybe a Cole Rosario. I could see that potentially. You've got Council and Trey White and Jaden Dawson who have no eligibility left. Maybe a Cole Rosario returns.
What about a Bryson Tiller or Elmarco Jackson or Jamari McDowell? Those are the big 3 I look at.
I would say I think it's unlikely that McDowell and Jackson come back.
Okay.
I think there's a chance for Tiller. But I think there's probably a dollar amount that Bill Self in Kansas would be unwilling to go over, and if he's able to get that somewhere else, then he might be out the door too.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I love his game. Now,
yeah.
he had major discrepancies in his home and road splits, where he was really good at home. He was terrible on the road.
And in the tournament and in Kansas City. He was really bad in postseason play.
He struggled.
Which was on the road.
I think he hit that freshman wall. And if he comes back, I would expect a huge uptick in his game, kind of like Chris Sinak at Houston. Both of those bigs could really benefit from one more year in college. And Tiller's not really on NBA radars. Like, he'd probably get drafted, but it'd be mid to late second round. He has incredible size. He's got a nice shot. He's a defensive, he's really impactful on that end of the floor. So, yeah, I see what you're saying with KU's roster next year. Like, it could look really good if some of these guys come back, and it could look really, really new if they don't.
By the way, Kansas, according to 24/7 Sports, is the 3rd best recruiting class in the nation. Via Rivals, they've got the 11th. But Taylon Kinney is a 5-star who highlights that class. 6'1", 185-pound point guard, which is a big reason why I think McDowell and Jackson will not be back, even though it could provide some depth. They also had some 4-stars in Davion Adkins, Trent Perry, and Luke Barnett. They've got a loaded class, and that doesn't even count the potential for Tyron Stokes, who could be committing within the next week or so. Okay, so Bill Self returns. Michigan's Elliot Cadeau received medical treatment after an allergic reaction. The team was boarding buses to head out to Indianapolis yesterday, and there was video of a player receiving medical attention, was actually stretchered to a hospital. The latest reporting on it is that Cadeau may have had an allergic reaction to something that he ate, but the reporting on it is extremely ambiguous. The latest, though, is that he's fine. Everything's fine. It was all out of a quote-unquote abundance of caution, James.
Man, and they went overboard with the caution. I mean, they had him on a gurney. They had him wrapped up in a blanket. I mean, there was like paparazzi-type footage of him being wheeled to the ambulance. And apparently it's a possible allergic reaction to something he ate. What did he eat? Michigan has said that he's fine. He was cleared to travel. He's expected to play on Saturday. But it was a really weird kind of thing to see, a player of this caliber being wheeled in that fashion into an ambulance.
Maybe he has a peanut allergy. Maybe he ate something he didn't know that had peanuts in it and then said, hey, this could be bad. I can't have peanuts. And they wheeled him off out of an abundance of caution.
If I'm Jaden Bradley, I'm crushing peanuts, almonds, cashews, and stuffing them in my shoes for Saturday's game. But he's going to be fine, and he's been really good. Not a high-level scorer. He's about 10 points per game, but he's averaging 6 assists on the season in 38 games of work. So he's had double-digit assist-type games, and I cannot wait for the Cadeau-Bradley matchup because they're very different players who are elite point guards in this field.
That's James Westling on social at James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin on social at Ari Sports. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. On the way next, the biggest storylines about the Arizona-Michigan Final Four matchup that nobody is talking about. That's next. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Jaden Bradley guarded by Boogie Fland. Fland is a good defender. Up and over. Chenyelu goes Bradley.
Rest of our fabulous TNT Sports crew here from Tucson, Arizona.
Just vicious. In the non-conference play, he's obviously almost always guaranteed to give you 10 and 10.
Bradley with the block there, went the other way, but they didn't have the ball. That's going to be out of bounds.
David punch. And tough shot, challenge. Kribas, you talked about it earlier.
Yep.
The effect, even though he doesn't get a block shot, Fran, he clearly changed that one. It's back to the other end. Jaden Bradley, chance for 4. Roy pulls off target from deep, buries the rebound. Karchenkov in transition. Bradley, look out!
But I think Kingston Clemens is the sole reason as to why.
Manchukas threw it right away to Bradley all alone.
Del Orso, 3.
Tough one.
Oh, Karchenkov, what a save.
Nice.
Great look. Del Orso from Bradley.
Remember, it's not just the first shot, it's the offensive rebound. Bradley trying to do it himself. He does! He hit it!
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. By the way, we talked a little bit about Jason Gardner in the last segment, of course. A hugely impactful player for Arizona basketball who's in his 5th season as the Director of Player Relations, which he's been since August of 2021. Before that, he served as the head coach of IUPUI. And get this, Jason Gardner Jr., a 4-star recruit, 6'1", 185-pound combo guard out of Fishers, Indiana, 2027 class.
Wow.
He's being recruited right now by Arizona, Auburn, Cincinnati, Florida, and Indiana. I wonder where he'll go.
So when we were told Jason Gardner lives in Indianapolis, what they really mean is he will be in Indianapolis with the team.
But also, yeah, that he lives in Indianapolis.
He also lives in Indianapolis.
His kid is in Fishers, Indiana, and he coached at IUPUI. So, yeah. All right, let's take a look from this Final Four matchup. We're closing in on 60 hours away from tip-off, something like that, between Michigan and Arizona. And so I thought let's zero in on some of the most impactful storylines within this game that nobody's talking about. And so I'll start with the stadium effect, the Lucas Oil effect, which may or may not be something that people are talking about, but I think it gets deeper than just that. So when you talk about playing basketball at a football stadium, you know, there's always the discussion about, does this impact three-point shooting? Does it impact shooting? The shooting backgrounds, it's very cavernous, it's deep, it's huge, it's a lot different in terms of just an actual physical structure than any basketball arena you've played in all year. So it does take some getting used to. So as we know, Arizona attempts fewer threes than basically anybody else in Division I, right? I mean, this is a low-volume three-point shooting team. So should those long sight lines of the cavernous Lucas Oil Stadium actually matter here? Now, you mentioned this. They're shooting in the last month 40% from three. We know that Berries and Bradley and Del Orso are guys that can knock down threes. So how do you, first, before we kind of dig into the numbers here, James, how do you feel about that aspect, the Lucas Oil effect?
Yeah, I mean, a 70,000-seat capacity stadium for a basketball game is weird. It's different. And you do see the three-point shooting usually take a little bit of a hit, at least at the start of the game. Like, it takes these teams some time to warm up to the depth perception and just how much space is behind the basket. So I would say that with this matchup in particular, I think it's kind of a wash. Like, I don't think that it matters a ton because both teams don't really rely on the three-point shooting. Even Michigan gets a ton of points in the paint. Michigan runs some of the fewest, like, ISO plays of anybody in the country. Only 2% of their possessions are ISO plays. Like, it's very much space and passing, bouncing back doors to get points at the rim. So maybe it impacts some of the passing, but I don't know that it's going to impact the game in a huge way in terms of the three-point shooting because both teams don't shoot a ton. Yeah,
and look, I mean, Final Four environments can at times be brutal for shooting, as you mentioned. But let's take a look, I think, at Arizona's three-point defense. Because Michigan, though they don't shoot a ton of threes, does shoot more threes than Arizona does. On the season, Arizona's 35th in three-point field goal percentage defense at 31%. 35th in the nation, 31%. That's the percentage they're giving up from three. What's sort of surprising is they're 211th in three-point field goal attempts against. It means they're giving up actually a ton of three-point attempts. And that number is 24 per game, 23.6, okay? Now here's what's really interesting. Their last three games, so in the NCAA tournament, not the first round, but every round after that, their attempts allowed jumped from 23.6 to 25.7. So they're actually giving up more three-point attempts per game in the last three games. Almost three more total per game. Here's what's interesting. The percentage has dropped. So 31% during the season. They're not giving up 27.3% from three in the last three games. So let's just recap that real quickly. Teams are taking more threes against them in the tournament, and they're making fewer of them.
Right.
So it suggests one of two things and possibly both. Either Arizona's defense is tightening its contest quality as the competition level rises and the planning gets more specific. Because remember, during the season, you're not doing as much game planning specific as you are worried about yourself. In the tournament, it's more of a what do they do and how do we take them out of what they do. You're looking at film. You're doing way more on teams and team-specific stuff. The other thing is the tournament opponents are being forced into desperation threes late in the possession after failing to crack Arizona's interior, and then therefore those are lower quality shots. I think that's a lot of what's carried Arizona this season. I was shocked to learn that Arizona's 211th in three-point attempts against. I figured their three-point defense was so good they were taking teams out of shooting threes. That's Houston. Houston takes you out of shooting threes. Arizona says, no, go ahead, take them. But a lot of those shots come at the end of shot clock and desperation moment after they've tried to get inside and get into the paint and shoot in the interior.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at how, number one, I think back to the regular season and how Arizona was beating people. And remember, they had a ton of blowout wins. I mean, they had more wins by 20 or more points than any other Arizona team ever. And like 14 of their first 18 wins were by 20 or more points. It was a historic start to their season when they started 22-0. So those teams are naturally going to shoot more threes because they're down by 20 points. And then I think the other factor when it comes to the NCAA tournament, in those early rounds, those guys wiggle into the paint and say, no thanks. Tobe Awaka's waiting for them. Mo Krivas is waiting for them. Koa Pete is waiting for them. So they kick it out to the perimeter. And then the third factor I look at is just the opponents that they've had in the NCAA tournament. Utah State is very much built around spacing and three-point production. Purdue shoots as many threes as anybody in the country. I actually felt like Purdue didn't take a ton of threes in that game. I don't have the numbers in front of me compared to their volume on the season. And Arizona's really good at hedging on-ball screens. They're really good at recovery. And then when you've got those long-armed, like a 7'2" Mo Krivas, who's not afraid to come out on the perimeter and guard you, it's incredibly difficult. And real quick, circling back to your venue point that you made, there is data to support this. 75% of Final Four teams over the last decade shot lower in their late round games than they did in the early round games. So the bigger the venue, the less shots that go in. Specifically, at Lucas Oil Stadium, producer Will filling in had how many Final Fours have been at Lucas Oil?
4.
This will be the fourth. This will be the fourth. Okay. So specifically Lucas Oil Stadium, scoring has dropped 14.8% from previous tournament games and 15% from regular season averages.
So it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. The scoring is down when it comes to these giant venues, specifically Lucas Oil.
And I also think as we talk about like three-point volume, and maybe that's how a surprising number for Arizona from a season-long trend, I think this speaks to, like, we focus so much on Arizona's offensive schematics, and they're not a big three-point shooting team volume-wise. I think they've defensively, though, strategically put in position where, like, they want you to shoot three. They're fine with you shooting threes. So they are basically taking advantage of the situation, right? So it's not just about their offense, as we talk so much about, well, they don't shoot a lot of threes. Defensively, their game plan is, we know you want to shoot threes. We're going to let you shoot threes. The difference is you're not going to get good looks. We want you to take threes, just not good ones. The other part to this is, so we've talked about percentage of threes given up and total threes attempted. We've not talked about makes. How many are made per game, right? So Arizona on the season is giving up 12 made threes per game, which is a pretty high number, decent number. Michigan, by the way, is 58th nationally in three-pointers made per game at 9, but they're at 11 made threes per game in their last 3. So in the NCAA tournament, they're up 2 on their regular. And again, Arizona's 38th nationally in three-pointers made against, so they are giving up some threes at 12 per game. But I think that's where, like, and this is where the averages will even out. There are some games where they force a lot of bad threes and low percentages, and they're going to win their game. But in the games they don't, and teams do shoot a lot of threes against them, basically the math is Tommy Lloyd is saying, we trust our ability to still beat you on the interior and our physicality to where to get to the free throw line. So, like, we're still going to be, even if you shoot and make a bunch of threes, let's say 12 to our 6, 12 to our 5, it's not going to be enough threes to make up for the fact that we're going to beat you in the inside and beat you with free throws. throughout the course of the game.
Right. And this circles back to Michigan because Michigan doesn't take a ton of threes. Like, I don't see this game being won or lost from beyond the arc. I think it comes down to who gets to the foul line, who finishes at the rim, and who wins the rebounding battle. Because that's kind of the identity of both teams. I mean, Tommy Lloyd and Dusty May have both said it's like looking in the mirror. Now, what's different about Michigan, I brought up those isolation plays. They use ISO plays only 2.7% of the time, which is one of the lowest rates in the country. So they're bending defenses with pace and space and passing. They're the top team left in adjusted tempo. They're 22nd in the country in adjusted tempo. So they do want to play fast, like Arizona. Arizona's the second of the 4 left in adjusted tempo. They're top 50 in the country. Against Tennessee, Michigan had 19 assists on 29 baskets. Lindenborg erupted for those 27 points, and he only had 1 basket on an isolation play. Everything else was cutting. So if Arizona schemes to stop your best player, Michigan's answer is going to be, we don't have one, we have 5.
Right.
We don't care who goes off.
Right, and we're not going to take bad threes. You want to force us to take bad threes, we're not going to because of our passing.
Exactly.
Because most of their three-point shots come off of passing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great point. One of the other things I think that is not getting enough coverage, or that is a huge storyline in this game that maybe isn't getting talked about enough, which is this is the kill shot game. Right, so remember, Evan Miyakawa, he's got the kill shot stat, which is a really important stat. It's basically how many 10-0 runs you have, how many 10-0 runs you give up. This is one of the best kill shot offenses in Michigan against one of the best kill shot defenses. Remember, Arizona's not given up a kill shot all year in meaningful games. They've given up 1 kill shot. It was Northern Arizona. It was when they were up by 40 points. Michigan has 39 kill shots on the year, which is 4th best in the nation. So this is the kill shot game, James. It's the team with tons of kill shots against a team in Arizona that doesn't give up kill shots.
That stat that they've only allowed 1 all year blows my mind.
It's insane. And it came when they're up 40 points.
Like, you think about the course of a game, the war of 4s with the 4-minute media timeout chunks. Kill shots happen, and they happen multiple times per game, one side or the other. For Arizona to only allow 1, that's remarkable. And Michigan leading the country in kill shots per game, the kill shot margin being the best in the country. And if you think back to the Arizona-Purdue game, Purdue had a little bit of a run right before the half. They had a 7-point lead. But it wasn't a barrage of threes or easy baskets or grab-and-goes. Like, it was a slow, methodical run by Purdue where Arizona just went cold offensively and looked a little bit lost for a chunk of the game. This Michigan team is built very different. Like, their kill shot's going to be in 90 seconds. Can Arizona withstand that? And how does Arizona fight through that adversity that really they haven't seen all year? Because even in their losses, they've been close back and forth.
The last one for me is Ade Mara. All right, so we hear a lot about Lindenborg. We hear a lot about Elliot Cadeau. We hear a lot about some of these guys, but I don't think we hear enough about Mara. He might be Michigan's best player, or maybe their most important player. He's 7'3". He has over 100 blocks in the season this year. He's averaging close to 3 blocks per game. And in the tournament, he's averaging 5 assists per game. He's 7'3", and he can really play in every way. He's got a very, very interesting skill set. So to me, the biggest, most important game within the game here is Krivas versus Mara. Mara's 7'3", Krivas 7'2". They're both about 260 pounds. Mara's the flashier scorer with more tricks in his bag, but Krivas is the tough, smart, reliable big. I think that matchup is the key piece to this game.
Yep. Krivas and Mara, and then Koa Pete and Lindenborg. Like, those are the pairs that I'm most excited to see. Because you're right, Mo Krivas plays the game. He's very physical. He pushes you around. He's got a really fiery personality. And Mara's very different. Born in Spain. His dad was a professional basketball player. His mother was a professional volleyball player. He actually grew up playing soccer until he was about 9 or 10 years old. Played goalkeeper, so he's really good with his hands and his feet. He made his professional debut at like 17 in Spain, and he was very raw. But the passing is a really underrated part of a big man's game. And I see Mo Krivas and Tobe Awaka as being, we're going to pound you on the glass. He only averages 6.8 rebounds per game. At 7'3" in the amount of minutes he plays, those rebounding numbers for Michigan should be a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, you're right.
At 7'3", you should be grabbing more rebounds.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So he's a finesse guy. The Arizona guys are physical. It's going to be two very contrasting styles in the paint.
All right, there is some of the most important storylines that nobody's talking about when it comes to Michigan and Arizona. Let's talk about this game with Jason Scheer from Wildcat Authority next. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. James Westling, Ari Tepkin. We're presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on the Big 12 Studios.
Pete out high, one-on-one. Backdoor bounce and a scoop for Del Orso. Reverse layup makes it 22.
Little step and go, big-time delivery.
Haggerty had it taken away. It's a run out the other direction. And a slam the hammer from Karchenkov.
Now this is the problem when you play this team.
It made something out of nothing.
Ivan Karchenkov works the baseline.
Oh, man. He's another one of those freshmen. They play 4 freshmen.
It's pretty clear Arizona State defensively trying to pack the lane and dare Arizona to beat him from the outside. But Karchenkov, the freshman, says no.
35 and 33 minutes. Getting back to full health.
This is a great time.
Karchenkov off the turnover.
What they want to do is just get out quicker from those elbows and blocks to get to a shooter.
Bradley to a cutting Karchenkov. Taken away by Karchenkov. Karchenkov answers. Second half are on a pair of threes from Chase McCarty. Karchenkov will try one and hit it. Well, you give up the three, just go on the other end and get it back. Chris Sinek Jr. really moving his feet to stay in front of Karchenkov. Burries can't get by Flemings. Karchenkov banks home a three. Are you kidding me?
Thing, almost like, and we all know, right? Like with Lloyd, he checked every box except for this one, and we know when he was hired, there were probably a lot of Arizona alums that felt like, why not hire a Arizona alum here for this spot? I mean, Damon Stoudemire, right? Like some of the names that obviously now in retrospect seem funny, like that was a thing. So, like, do you think that this is more like a let's see if Tommy can get us to a Final Four thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think like last year there were rumors, and I know another writer put it out that like Tommy was going to Villanova, that he talked to Villanova. No one around here took that seriously. That was a kind of a money play, and whatever it might be, I want more years in my contract, etc. And he got it. This is a little bit different. It just is. It's I don't think it has to do with his overall, can I make a Final Four or how far it goes and all that. This one feels different, but now that he's made a Final Four, the reality is he's got the leverage. I mean, no one's made a Final Four at Arizona for 25 years, and Tommy's not a dumb guy. He knows exactly what he's doing with all this, and he's got the leverage, and Tucson's behind him, so it's kind of a deal where you might as well take advantage of that and make sure you're getting what you want, and if not, there's another school that may be willing to give it.
Great point.
Jason, you noted that Tommy Lloyd is not changing the routine before the Final Four. What is the routine, and can you elaborate on that?
He's been very consistent in saying he doesn't want to make the tournament any bigger than it is. That it is another basketball game that they are looking to win. In other words, like they went home, they took the day off on Sunday, Monday they were light, and then they go back to practice. And it's just a normal week. He's not telling them how big the Final Four is and how they absolutely have to win and all that stuff. He's trying to make everything as normal as possible. And that's the same routine he's had since he's been in Arizona, and it's the same routine he's had, in the postseason this year. And he said it. He goes, look, we're not stupid. Like, we know it's the Final Four, but he thinks he would be doing a disservice to the players if all of a sudden he said, oh my gosh, this is a big game. You guys have to win. We're changing everything. He thinks that it would knock the players off their path and kind of catch them off guard and all that. So he's trying to keep things as normal as possible.
We just did a segment on kind of some of the most important
recording in progress
talking points for this game, the Final Four game that nobody's talking about. What stands out to you? Like, what are the most important aspects of this matchup between Michigan and Arizona?
One thing that I don't know if it's getting talked about enough is we've seen historically that when the Final Four is played in stadiums, the shooting is awful.
Yeah.
And
yes.
What's interesting about that is Arizona isn't a three-point shooting team. So it's and Tommy got asked about this at a press conference in Tucson the other day, and he said they get multiple practices, which is great on this court, but it's interesting, and Michigan's pretty similar in the sense that Arizona doesn't rely on three-point shooting. So I'm curious how it impacts Arizona overall. But I mean, this is analytically and all that. This is as close of a game as you can get, and it's something where it feels like the national championship, even though Illinois and Yukon are very capable of winning the title because they're both very good teams. But it feels like a lot of people are treating it like the de facto national title game.
Yeah, and what's interesting too about the shooting piece is not just from the offensive perspective for Arizona, but the defensive perspective. Arizona is, I was surprised to find out, 211th in the nation in three-point attempts against. So teams do shoot a lot of threes against them and even make a decent amount of threes. I think it's like 23 per game. But in the tournament, last 3 games in particular, they're giving up even more attempts per game than they were during the season. It went from 23.6 to 25, but they're giving up a lower percentage of them. It went from 31%, which was in the 30s nationally during the season, to now 27%. So they're giving up more 3 attempts at a lower percentage. And so, I mean, it's just an interesting dynamic here where it's almost like they want teams to shoot threes and know that they're still going to beat them.
Yeah, and I think a part of it, too, is Arizona's 2-point defense is so good.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That teams are they have to shoot threes. And so, like, Arkansas got down big. They had to shoot threes. Utah State was having trouble scoring inside, so they had to shoot threes. Michigan, we'll see. I mean, if Michigan can't get inside and, they're better, in the paint than the previous teams that Arizona's faced in the tournament. But if they can't get inside, they're going to shoot threes. And that's where I think the whole stadium thing becomes interesting. I mean, teams, like, there's a stat that, teams that shoot a certain amount of threes in the Final Four, they lose. I think teams that shoot 15 threes or less in the Final Four last couple of years or whatever are 7-1. Like, it's a thing. And so, I'm very curious to see how much of a thing it is this weekend, but it's absolutely a storyline right now.
How does Arizona slow down Lindeborg? I mean, you had a great tweet about a guy that said Trey Kaufman-Wren was going to be a difficult matchup for Koa Pete because Pete's a baby and he took his lunch money. So how do they slow down Lindeborg?
Man, that was tough when that happened.
Yeah. He's the best player they faced in the tournament. It's Acuff was really good, but I think Acuff was a different type of player, and they didn't shut down Acuff. He still scored 28 or whatever it is. Lindeborg's awesome. My guess is they give him a lot of different looks. Ivan will guard him. Koa Pete will guard him. I think Awaka will try to be physical with him at times, but he's so good and so dynamic, especially in the tournament. He's been great. It's tough. I think that, when Arizona in the Big 12, they played so many good players, right? Like, they played DeBanza and Peterson and Joshua Jefferson and all that. And the one thing it had in common was they gave him a lot of different looks. They'd go big on him. They'd go small and quick. They'd follow him around screens and stuff like that. So that's my guess is how they approach it. But it may be a situation where, look, he's going to get 20 points or whatever it is. You just got to make sure that it's well-earned and hopefully inefficient and no one else goes off. And you should be in pretty decent shape still.
Obviously, it's still early in the week, but I'm always interested to see from like a fan base perspective what it looks like in terms of travel. I'd imagine Arizona's got a great fan base, and it's been a long time since they've been to a Final Four. So I bet there's a ton of Arizona fans. Champaign is only 2 hours away from Indianapolis, so I imagine there's a ton of Illinois fans. Like, give us the lay of the land here in terms of what you've noticed or seen from the fan bases that are there in Indy already.
Yeah, I'll probably get a better feel for it today when I walk around and stuff. I assume Michigan and Illinois will have the most fans, but with Arizona and Tucson, people are going. I mean, they're going, and it's basically, it's the type of deal where it's like, look, it's been 25 years. We're not missing out on this, right? And it's harder to get to. I mean, the flight prices were crazy. If you didn't book a hotel, you're not staying anywhere near downtown Indy, but people are going. I mean, there's a lot, and the U of A did something where students got tickets for $40. You got to get yourself there, and so there's going to be quite a few students, and I think there's going to be a lot of Arizona fans. I mean, Arizona fans travel. It's one thing they do, no matter where it is. You can put on an Arizona basketball game, and you'll hear the U of A chants, and it'll be tough to have as many as Michigan or Illinois, but I know that Arizona fans will definitely be heard this weekend.
What a moment this has to be for Jason Gardner, who today I learned he is on the Arizona staff. We were told that he would be in Indianapolis because he's from there. But I mean, he was the guy back in the early 2000s. Just his presence and his role within this staff. I mean, anything you can share with us in terms of Jason?
Yeah, so he worked with player relations, former players, and it's got to be cool for him. I mean, he's from here. He's coming back, for the first time since he played in the Final Four. It was cool to see after Arizona won and made the Final Four. His son, who's a really good basketball player in his own right, they were taking pictures with the trophy, and you kind of just look at him and go, okay, like that's what I remember, right? Like it's kind of that bridging of, I don't want to say old guard to new guard, but that's kind of what it is. Like it's just kind of bridging that, and so it's been cool to see, and I'm sure he's pumped about being back this weekend.
Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority. We'll see you in a couple of days. Appreciate you. Take care.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Jason.
Always good to catch up with Jason Scheer from Wildcat Authority. Go check out the great work that he and his staff do at Wildcat Authority in covering Arizona basketball and football, but of course basketball right now at this monumental time for this Arizona basketball program. All right, with James Wesley, I'm Ari Tepkin. Plenty more to break down when it comes to this matchup. On the way next, though, the NCAA has officially passed legislation on this issue. We'll get into it next. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
BYU Villanova. We'll get our first look at A.J. DeBonsa as Koa Pete on the receiving end.
Execution on that possession from Florida.
Xavier Lee, it's his second three of the night. Oh! Koa Pete from the rafters!
What a pass and delivery against Condon.
Here comes Bradley. Bradley gives it to Pete. Pete, look out below! One highlight after another. Mr. Arizona has arrived at the collegiate level.
Utah steal, then they throw it right back to the Wildcats. NASCAR tempo, a lob, and Pete brings the house down.
Senior out of Rickards High School, Tallahassee, a venerable program. Pete the screen for Karchenkov, and they'll play it together for two and a foul. Rebound pawed down by Krivas. On the hit ahead, Pete. Duck.
Woo-hoo! How about the outlet pass? There's the end of the play.
Johnson will. Yeah, he will. And he hit the backboard.
Numbers here.
Burries. Flanked by Pete and a hammer.
Bringing it all. The chandeliers as well. They can be explosive.
And look at his work on Mo Krivas down low.
The lob. Oh, watch out. High above the rim. Bradley trying to find one of his bigs. He gets it to Pete. Pete off balance. Fires. Oh, what a shot.
The NCAA is saying, hey, remember us? We still matter. James Westling, Ari Tepkin, Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. A reminder, we will be out in Indianapolis for the Final Four, giving you the full coverage of Arizona in the Final Four. Arizona, Michigan will be at the game. We have a pregame show that will start on Saturday at 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, and take you right up to tip-off of Game 1 between Yukon and Illinois, and then Game 2 at 7:49 or so Central, 8:49 or so Eastern Time. It's Michigan and Arizona, Game 2 of the Final Four, and we will have all of the coverage for you here on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios, so make sure to subscribe, to like, to comment, to share, do all the things as we bring you front and center to Indianapolis and the Final Four.
Should I wear my authentic Arizona 2001 Wildcats basketball shorts all weekend long?
Yes.
I mean, they look cool enough, right?
Definitely.
25 years later?
I mean, do you have the jersey to match too?
I don't have a jersey.
Can you buy one?
Just the shorts. Just the shorts.
You buy a Jason Gardner jersey?
Maybe he's got one on the Players Closet.
Yeah, maybe. That's
Are you familiar with that, the Players Closet?
I am.
Okay. Have you bought anything from there?
No.
Really unique idea that actually, like, former athletes can actually sell their game-worn stuff, and it goes for insane dollars. I've got some buddies that are really into it. It's kind of weird to me.
Yeah, no, it is.
Okay.
Yes, very weird.
Like, I don't need Darren Peterson's shorts that Darren Peterson actually wore. I'll just buy my own pair off the rack. These aren't actually the shorts that Jason Gardner or Gilbert Arenas or Channing Frye wore in 2001.
And nor do I want to pay the premium for, like, the Darren Peterson worn shorts.
Yeah.
It's a little bizarre.
It is a little weird. In fact, I felt uncomfortable when we were at the Big 12 tournament and somehow stumbled into, like, the laundry room. I was like, oh, here's all the stuff. Like, here's all their gear. Like, I don't belong here.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. So the NCAA is like, hey, remember us? We're still here. We still exist. We still relevant. We talked about this potentially happening, and now it officially has. The NCAA has passed legislation for, quote-unquote, blind transfers, which the best example we can give you of this would be former BYU quarterback Jake Retzloff, who had his legal struggles and troubles at BYU before he dropped out and resurfaced at Tulane and did so outside of the portal window. And what did he do? Well, he just unenrolled, then enrolled at Tulane. Was like, hey, I'm a football player too, by the way. Oh, yeah? You should come out for the football team then. Sweet, I will.
And we'll pay you millions of dollars.
Well, and we'll not make you pay for school. Cool. So basically a backdoor way to transfer outside of the transfer portal window. The NCAA has now closed the loop on that, which is a good thing, I suppose, right? There's no point in having portal windows if you could just bypass that portal window. So basically, and it's a pretty punitive penalty for those that accept transfers outside the portal window. And I think the NCAA smartly tied this to universities as opposed to tying it to the kid, penalizing the kid for doing this, because that probably wouldn't hold up in court. But in a situation in which they're penalizing the teams, the programs for this, they're thinking there's a higher likelihood they will not be sued by the schools themselves. We'll see how this actually plays out in public, if there's an actual situation that transpires with this. But basically, if the team's head coach would lose 50% of the season. They'd be suspended for 50% of the season, and the NCAA would also fine that university 20% of their sports budget. It's a punitive penalty here.
Yeah, it really is. And Retzloff is the case that drew so many headlines. Now, his was a really unique situation because he was dismissed by BYU before he enrolled at Tulane. The other one that came to mind was the Wisconsin corner, Xavier Lucas, because he wasn't dismissed from the program or booted off the team. He just simply withdrew from classes, says, I'm done going to class. He enrolled at Miami in 2025 and just never entered the portal. He just circumvented the entire system. So the penalties are harsh, but what this does, in my mind, is it establishes rosters here on April 2nd, whereas Jake Retzloff joined Tulane in the summer. Xavier Lucas joined Miami in the summer. Your roster is your roster at this point in time, which is a really good thing when it comes to the college football calendar, all the movement. There's now that single 15-day transfer window. There's no spring portal. The window is closed, and your roster is your roster. So there's no surprises for anybody this late in the game, which kind of circles back to how it used to be. Like, you know your roster on April 2nd. Now you can focus on just getting those guys within your program playing at their best by September 1st, which is ultimately the goal. So I like it. Every Big 12 program is in spring ball. The depth charts are shifting. Guys are moving up and they're moving down on the depth chart. And now, from a player's perspective, guys that are within their program, they can focus on themselves and their teammates and getting better. And you don't have to worry about, well, this guy's unhappy, he might leave because he's now the third-string running back or whatever the case may be. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, and I think, like, this was something that had to be nipped in the bud because, I mean, think about it from this perspective. If you are in the portal at the same time as everybody else, your leverage in negotiations is diminished because of the depth of the pool. But in the summertime, your leverage goes way up, especially if you're a player at a position of need for a program, right? So, I mean, makes a lot of sense. You're a cornerback. If you're in the transfer portal at the same time as a bunch of other corners, you don't stand out nearly as much. But in the summertime, after all of these position battles have been waned and teams know their biggest weaknesses, man, if only we could add a new corner right now, that'd be really helpful. Well, here's a guy that we could add, but it's going to cost us a premium because there's nobody else in the portal to add at this point. That there's a future in which that could be a standard, thus completely throwing the sport in flux. So, again, something that had to happen because of the potential leverage in a summer, quote-unquote, blind portal window would have had.
Right, and you know, BYU is kind of at the forefront of this because of Jake Retzloff and everything that ensued there. And if you're Tulane, you're looking for a quarterback. Your backups in spring aren't getting the job done. I mean, it's like finding the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for a program like that. So I think it's a good thing. Now, the other player that comes to mind is another BYU player in Parker Kingston. Like, did he miss the portal window? He's no longer part of the BYU program. It's not a transfer situation. He's gone entirely from BYU. But what does that mean for him in terms of his future? If he's missed that portal window, which I think he has to sit out next year, or is he done with football? Like, that's something that I'm trying to find more information on and will down the road. But again, it's a BYU situation that comes to the forefront in my mind.
Yeah, no, great point. Also related to this from a football perspective, CBS Sports' Chris Hummer has the latest news on retention gaps across conference tiers. This is something he's done before. But, I mean, get this. Of 114 G6 players who earned first or second team all-conference honors and returned to college football in 2026, only 29.5% stayed with their 2025 team. So I'm just going to say that stat a different way. 73 of the 81 first and second team all-conference players at the G6 level transferred up. 73 of 81.
And what's that percentage?
I mean,
the number that you just had of guys that are staying with their current
29.5%.
29%. That percentage, now when you say it the other way, like, it makes more sense in my brain. All those guys are out. Like, all those guys are gone. It's really hard to turn down that paycheck. And when you look at Indiana's blueprint and how they won a national championship, the Power Conference programs and schools are now hunting and chasing those guys more than ever before. And then you factor in, like, I'm sure Eric Morris and the North Texas players that come with him to Oklahoma State is a large percentage of that. You look at the same thing with South Florida. Most of their team is now at Auburn. A lot of the Tulane guys are either reunited with Willie Fritz in Houston or they went with John Sumrall to Florida. So the number is probably only going to grow. And Jeff Traylor at UTSA has been banging this drum for years. Every year, anybody who makes all conference, because UTSA has a very limited budget, they're gone. And like we see in basketball, football programs are kind of now recruiting in the same manner at the G5 level. Like, join us, be with us for a couple of years. You make third team all Conference USA or whatever it is, and you're on to that bigger paycheck in that next step.
This is very much a caste system because this even extends to the Power Four. Okay, so the numbers get further than that. SEC Big Ten, 97% of their first and second team all-conference players stay in the SEC of the Big Ten.
97% stay.
97% stay.
At the same school.
Yes. You know what that number is for the ACC and the Big 12?
Much lower.
56.8%.
Wow. That's a lot lower than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be around 70%. 56% of all conference players.
Almost 57.
In the Big 12 and the ACC, with eligibility remaining,
transfer.
That number needs to be higher. And if 97% of the SEC and Big Ten players are staying, there's a huge discrepancy with the percentage of players that are transferring to those type of programs and the number of players returning at those programs that were all conference, which means to me, you're transferring to that school to sit the bench. You're not going to have the workload that you had in the Big 12 or the ACC. So that's a point I think the Big 12 can lean into. Texas Tech's numbers would be really interesting to me because they get a lot of players from right here within this conference.
Well, and that's the sort of number beneath the number is that doesn't indicate they've transferred up. It simply means they transferred. Because in a lot of these cases, you do have guys transferring within the same conference. So it's money.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Right. Like that's a given.
At every level, every stage. That's the number one driving force.
But it shows you how to play the game, right? So I think if you're the group of like, the reality is you could complain about the reality, or you could figure out the strategy within the reality. And I think the best group of 6 schools will do that. They'll figure out how to still remain competitive despite the fact that you're going to lose every single one of your all-conference players. You're going to. So you need to have guys behind them to fulfill some depth. It sucks in many ways, but it's the reality. And then I think, of course, at the Big 12 ACC level, the notion here is, okay, we've got to be recruiting the group of 6 level at a high level.
Exactly.
Because we need to be ready for those all-conference players to transfer up.
Yep.
And not worry as much about retaining our own all-conference players.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a pyramid, and at the top is SEC and the Big Ten. In the middle is the Big 12 and the ACC, and at the bottom are the Group of 6. Group of 6, you move up to the Big 12 and the ACC, and then you're either part of that 57% that stay at your Big 12 or your ACC school, or you're on to the SEC and the Big 10. And again, the payday, I think, is just – it's the number one driving force when you look at not every individual, but collectively. And guys are so enamored by that paycheck that they're willing and they're told that they're going to be on the field, but then they get to an LSU who went way over budget this year, paid an insane amount of money for K-State wide receiver Jace Brown, who's like 5th on their depth chart. He was K-State's number one go-to guy in every facet. They were getting him the ball in the backfield on jet sweeps. They were throwing it deep to him. His volume at Kansas State, he wasn't going to find anywhere else. But LSU swoops in. They offer him this ridiculous NFL-level contract to come and be their 4th or 5th guy. Like, that's what these kids are fighting against when it comes to those two leagues.
Well, here's maybe the most interesting stat about all of over all these stats. 47% of all conference players have transferred at some point in their career.
Every level.
Every level.
Nearly half. Man, that's wild. You know, and I'm trying to think, is that number surprising?
Right.
Fernando Mendoza, Cal, Indiana. Like the guy, everybody's transferring. It is a bigger, like you're an outlier if you stay at your school for all 4 or 5 years. Right now in football and in men's basketball, and even some in women's basketball.
Yes.
Everybody's transferring.
Correct.
At least once. And when you transfer, it's that second stop where I think the player development comes in. So I'd love to see data on first-year transfers versus transfers that were within the program for 2 or 3 years, because to me, if the group of 5 is the new junior college athletes used to thrive their second year in whatever system they were in. Bill Snyder built Kansas State football that way. A lot of programs built their basketball teams that way. It was that second year where guys went on to do big things. Steve Francis comes to mind. JUCO kid goes to Maryland. His second year at Maryland, he blows up.
Yeah, and I think Bill Snyder, as we've discussed, market inefficiencies. Bill Snyder exploited a market inefficiency. There were not as much JUCO transfers. There was not as many coaches playing the transfer portal. And so at that point in time, it was, a market inefficiency to do so. It feels now, though, like playing the transfer portal game is a market. It's an inefficiency to do that. Like what you should be doing is retaining your own players. And especially at, I think, the Big 12 level. If you have X amount of dollars in your budget, then you need to do whatever you can in order to retain those players. And in the case of like a Sam Leavitt at Arizona State, where the math doesn't math, then it makes sense to move on.
And that's where we talk about CBA, collective bargaining, contracts. Like, where are the buyouts? And some programs are starting to implement that. And some programs are starting to sign guys to multi-year contracts. Texas Tech is doing it. Baylor men's basketball is doing it with their point guard, Isaiah Williams, who signed a 2-year deal. I think that's the next step for any type of retention, but it starts with the individual schools. It's not going to come from the NCAA. It's not going to come from agents. They don't want that. Right. It's not going to come from conferences. The schools have to buy in and then show that you can be successful with that model before others catch on and follow suit.
That's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. On the way next, the elephant in the room when it comes to Arizona basketball. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio.
going to play through those post guys, screens, pick and roll, high-low, everything.
Burries tries. That's a three, and it'll go. Braden Burries.
Not a
Shot
mismatch.
clock under 10.
They have Pete if they want him.
Burries step back. Gets another.
Never mind. Don't worry about Pete.
You saw that Penn State game, obviously. It's surprising.
Oh, what a find. Burries the stuff.
Pete makes plays now. He's done that a few times. Got to get away from him. Yep.
Bradley knew he had it. Just picked his pocket.
Nice pass.
Burries the stuff, guard to guard.
About that. All set up by defense.
Bradley got tangled up in gridlock with Castillo, and he threads it through beautifully. Scintillating pass to Burries.
Vision is extraordinary.
Just under 21 a game. One chipped away. Cadeau goes down to the floor. Loose ball. Privas push up ahead. Burries throws it down.
Terrific play by the big fella.
Just kind of flung it up, no good. Burries draws the foul, hits the shot. Prospects in this game. Karchenkov hustles and gets the rebound and finds Burries! Oh my goodness! Oh! What a dunk from the freshman guard!
Very talented freshman got space and put him on a poster. But this game
Concerned about complacency tonight. And they have gotten haymakers thrown at them. But there's Braden Burries giving Arizona the lead.
Big 12 Radio. It's Big 12 today. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, along with James Westling, who's rocking the Arizona Wildcats 2021 shorts today. Huge Wildcats fan, James Westling, no matter which the Wildcat is. It could be Villanova, it could be Arizona, it could be...
Don't forget about Northwestern.
Northwestern. Man, when in doubt, just be the Wildcats, right, K-State?
All about it. All about it. Go Cats.
Let's
and
go.
Arizona and Kansas State have very similar, like, throwback Cats script font.
Yep.
So I thought I could maybe rock a K-State Cats hoodie, and you would... Is it Arizona? Is it Kansas State? It's Arizona, but why is it purple?
Right. Then you wouldn't be confused.
Very confusing.
It would not be confusing if you're wearing a lavender sweatshirt that says Cats.
Right. Maybe it's gray.
Maybe. Yeah. Definitely get confused with lavender and gray all the time.
I'm the king of the neutral color palette.
We're going to be out at the Final Four this weekend. Join us. We're going to be doing a pregame show on Saturday before the Final Four, talking Arizona and Michigan. And, of course, we'll have interviews with players. You're not going to want to miss the party we're throwing in Indy. If you can't be in Indy, we'll take you there with us. And looking at flights and hotel rooms, chances are if you have not booked yet, you are not going.
Yes.
Make plans to join us. We're going to be out there starting on Friday, all through the weekend. As long as Arizona's there, Arizona is at the Final Four. We will be there as well. So follow along on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios.
All right, so what is the elephant in the room when it comes to Arizona? To me, it's Tommy Lloyd in this North Carolina talk. And what's happening behind the scenes, I think, is probably very different than what we're getting at a surface level. But let's hear from Tommy Lloyd. And he's been asked, like, every time he takes the podium, somebody asks him about the North Carolina job, which, by the way, like Polymarket and all of kind of these offshoot market predictors currently have him as 32% chance that he's the coach at North Carolina next year. Second on the list, only behind Billy Donovan. But he was asked about this potentially being a distraction, and the comment that he made earlier in the week about there being coaches after him, and here's what he said.
Right now, it's absolutely true. There's going to be another coach. This is a great program. I didn't say when. You know, I mean, and people are going to speculate all they want. Guys, this team has my full focus. Nothing, I promise you nothing is knocking me off that path. And you guys might call them distractions because you're distracted. That doesn't mean I'm distracted or we're distracted. You know what's pretty cool? Once you get some experience in this deal and you're a player or you're a coach who's been at it a while, you get pretty good at, you know, eliminating the distractions. So I think I'm pretty good at that. And I just can't wait to get to practice today. I'm going to go meet with the staff right now. We're probably a little bit late. That's why Nate's pushing me to get up there. And I'm going to go try to have a good practice.
Okay, when he says that, I believe it. I am bought in to what Tommy Lloyd is selling.
I believe it. However, how has he addressed this with his team? That's maybe the most important distraction that could take away from this Final Four for his team, right? Because basically, I mean, he's saying, like, we know how to limit distractions because we're not listening to social media. We're not on watching YouTube videos or what everybody else is speculating on. Like, we're not doing that. We're focused on Michigan. We're focused. But what is he telling the team? Because they've heard it. They're on social media, even if he's not. They see the rumors. Has he addressed it with his team? I think that's an important component of this non-distraction piece.
Yeah, and if he has, I don't think it carries a lot of weight. Because when you look at Arizona's roster, how many of these guys in rotation now, battling in the Final Four, shooting for a national championship, how many of these players care if Tommy Lloyd is at Arizona next season? Because Koa Pete's off to the NBA, Braden Burries is off to the NBA, Jaden Bradley's out of eligibility, Ivan Karchinkov is probably off to the NBA.
Yeah, I agree.
Mo Krivas has 1 year left, but he's already graduated. Tobea Waka's listed as a junior, but he's like 25. What does he care? Like, these guys aren't going to be here next year. Maybe the only guy would be Dwayne Aristode, who's playing about 7 or 8 minutes in the NCAA tournament and is their best three-point shooter when he's on the floor. But their top 7 dudes are not going to be back next season. And so I don't think it's a distraction because of this roster and this goal. They're not thinking about next year. So I do think this has been hyped up by the fans and by the media, and I appreciate Tommy Lloyd addressing it in the way that he has. He hasn't completely shot it down because maybe there is a 32% chance that he's at North Carolina next season because he hasn't had those conversations with the administration at Arizona. Regardless of how much he wants to be there, those conversations take place after you're eliminated from the NCAA tournament. His mission is putting the perfect plan together, not changing the routine, scouting Michigan, and winning this basketball game. And I think that's it.
And the one thing that I've been consistent about, in my opinion on this, is the only way that he would leave Arizona for any job, North Carolina or whatever, would be if he's not in alignment with the administration. And look, there's reason to believe that there's perhaps a disconnect between Desiree Reed-Francois and Tommy Lloyd, but that could be fixed very easily. And I would imagine there was a feeling in Tucson before this tournament started of, hey, we need results here. We're sick and tired of waiting. This is a blue blood program that hasn't been to a Final Four since 2001. That needs to end. That needs to be done. And so I'd imagine the feeling of Arizona fans and administration pre-tournament versus today, totally different. And if you're Tommy Lloyd, you've got to use whatever leverage you have. That's exactly what Jason Scheer told us from Wildcat Authority. And he's not only is he well-informed, but he's exactly right. He is playing the game that needs to be played in order for him to get what he wants, which would help get in alignment with the administration.
And those conversations take place after the season. They're in the Final Four. Like the numbers and the free advertising dollars and the ticket sales and the merchandise sales, like this is huge for Arizona. It's why it's been that benchmark that they haven't hit in the last 25 years. So now Tommy Lloyd has done everything that he needs to do to get the resources that's required to win a national championship. The next step is him getting those resources. And if Arizona says no, then sure, maybe he looks at North Carolina. But at this point in time, I don't think it's a distraction as much as the media and social media and fans want to make it out to be. Now, in terms of the actual game that's coming up with Arizona and Michigan, I call it the paint monsters because the shooting numbers are down at Lucas Oil. The shooting numbers are down in the Final Four. Teams that shoot, Jason had a phenomenal stat, less than 15 threes in the Final Four are the teams that are winning. 15 is a very low number. Teams across the college basketball landscape average between 17 and 20 threes taken per game. And you have some teams shooting 30 to 35. The teams that are 7-1 in the last 3 Final Fours have attempted 15 or less threes.
Wow.
So this is going to be a game that is won or lost at the rim. Foul trouble, offensive rebounds, capitalizing on clean looks in the paint. Like the team that gets more second chance points, stick backs, finishes those little baby hooks in the lane, that's the team that's going to win. And Arizona has a ridiculous points in the paint defense, which is why I love their chances. Michigan's really good, and they score the basketball in a very different way with a lot of spacing and cutting. But the way that Arizona defends, like opponents only shoot 44% from 2-point range. That is an insane number because they've got Mo Krivos, they've got Tobe Awaka. Karchenkov is an outstanding defender. Then Koa Pete, and just the muscle and the size that Arizona brings to the table outside of Lindenborg is very different from Michigan. He's going to be a problem, but Arizona has shown your star can get yours, like Darius Akoff Jr. did with 28 or whatever he had, and we could still win the basketball game.
The other thing is, and I'm so glad you brought up the three-point shooting piece, this goes back to the Tommy Lloyd zig in the rest of the NCAA zagging. And I'm trying to remember, it was probably 21, maybe 20, or maybe 23. Maybe 23. The NCAA set a record for most three-point attempts within the NCAA tournament. And it feels like it's now, like, some teams reacted to that. And I'm sure Lloyd, if he looked deep into it, which I'm sure he did, he said, you just can't, it's just not going to, it's sustainable to just keep going up and up. Like, so if we go the opposite end of the spectrum and we win playing this style, which is, like you said, rebounding, physical, interior presence, win in the paint, and then stop teams from shooting a high percentage in for 2-point shots, we're going to stand a really good chance to beat all of those teams that are high-volume three-point shooting teams. Where it looked like a very easy math equation, threes are worth more than 2, Tommy Lloyd looked deeper at those numbers, and said, like, no, that's not the only number to be looking at. And I think it's evened out a little bit. It got to a point where it was like every year we're going to see more three-point attempts in the NCAA tournament every single year, and I think we hit a tipping point in that.
Absolutely. And threes and layups and putting the ball in the basket. Well, there's one more way to put the ball in the basket that nobody's talking about, and that is at the free throw line. So how this game is officiated is going to be critical. Arizona leads the country in free throws made, and they lead the country in free throws attempted. Both school records, by the way. Arizona has made more foul shots than their opponent has even attempted. So they're getting +7, +8, +10, +12 each and every night from the foul line. Can they do that against Michigan? Arizona's also done an exceptional job of avoiding foul trouble, whereas the opponent is usually the team scrambling because of foul trouble. And even when Tobe Awaka got in foul trouble against Purdue, it didn't matter because of Arizona's depth on the inside. If Arizona can pick, I would go right at Mara, the big guy in the middle. Like, get that 7-3 center out of the game with 2 quick fouls, and it completely flips in Arizona's favor.
Dave Borges from covers Yukon for CT Insider joins us next. We're getting the look for all 4 teams in the Final Four here. Yukon is next. How'd they get here? And let's all laugh at Duke again. It's next. James Wesley, I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn. Watched on Big 12 Studios.
Bradley guarded by Boogie Fland. Fland is a good defender. Up and over. Chenyelu goes Bradley.
Rest of our fabulous TNT sports crew here from Tucson, Arizona.
Just vicious. In the non-conference play, he's obviously almost always guaranteed to give you 10 and 10.
Bradley with the block there, went the other way, but they didn't have the ball. That's going to be out of bounds.
David Punch. That tough shot, challenge. Kribas, you talked about it earlier.
Yep.
The effect, even though he doesn't get a block shot, Fran, he clearly changed. That one is back to the other end. Jaden Bradley, chance for 4.
Roy pulls off target from deep, buries the rebound. Karchenkov in transition. Bradley, look out!
When I think Kingston Clemens is the sole reason as to why.
Pachucas threw it right away to Bradley all alone.
Del Orso, three.
Tough one.
Oh, Karchenkov, what a save.
Nice.
Great look. Del Orso from Bradley.
Remember, it's not just the first shot, it's the offensive rebound. Bradley trying to do it himself. He does! He hit it!
Hey, on Big 12 Radio, we are presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. And we are previewing the Final Four with Arizona and Michigan, and then, of course, Yukon and Illinois. And we're talking now with Dave Borges, who covers Yukon for CT Insider. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Doing very well.
Have you yet been able to make sense of what transpired last weekend?
Not sure I ever will. When you think of everything that had to go right for UConn in the second half, in the last minute, in the last 10 seconds, from Alex Caravan, 0 for 5 from 3 on the day, 1 for 9 overall, hitting a 3 with 50 seconds left to get within 1. Then, down 2, Duke inbounding the ball with 10 seconds left. You still feel like in a foul or this seems very unlikely. Turnover. Even Alex, the way the ball bounces, even the way Alex Caravan eschewed a shot, and instead of trying to curl up the game winner, he knew he had enough time to get it back to Mullins. And just the fact that a 35-footer from Mullins, who hadn't made a 3 all game and had only made a few, has been struggling with a shot for a while now. It's ridiculous. It's one of the great victories I've ever seen in my life.
All the talk about the shot and the comeback, and it's almost like Terrace Reed Jr. has been buried, and he's doing things in this tournament that haven't been done since Shaq and Hakeem Olajuwon. Like, he is in elite company. Can you just describe his game to us and kind of his story and his background?
Terrace is a guy. He's a lighthearted, fun-loving guy. 6'11", 270 pounds, so he's huge and physically gifted. He's nimble for a big man. He ran track in junior high school. He's got all the talent in the world. He just doesn't really have that sort of ferocity that his coach Dan Hurley has and that Hurley wants from his players. And Dan's tried to get that out of him the last 2 years since he transferred from Michigan. And it just seems to be it's all coming together now at the perfect time. We've seen signs of his abilities. I mean, last year again at Providence, he had, I think, 25 points, 15 rebounds. And he didn't start last year. He was coming off the bench, putting up better numbers than the starter was. And this year, he had some injuries earlier in the season that kind of held him back a little bit, but he's just unlocked this ferocity and this knowledge that, this is it. it's do or die now, and his career is coming to an end. He wants to go out playing as well as he can. That you mentioned Shaq and some other guys. It's even goes further back than that. He had 31 points and 27 rebounds against Furman. The only two players in the history of college basketball who've done that in a tournament game were Jerry Lucas and Elvin Hayes, who are Hall of Famers from back in the 60s. Wow. So it's crazy what he's doing right now.
In what ways does Danny Hurley give his team a strategic advantage?
Well, they're the intangibles, and some people, sneer at that, but he really does build a culture where, he runs practices that are very difficult, and to the point where the games are almost easy, and any situation they're in, they're relaxed and they feel comfortable in. He's got an eternal chip on his shoulder, and his team feels that as well. He feels like the team gets disrespected a lot, and in some cases they do. Just the strategy. I mean, the offense that he's implemented along with Luke Murray, who of course is now leaving for Boston College, is a beautiful thing when run correctly, and it's very difficult to guard, and there's a lot of motion, and it's complex, but once the players learn it, they can, they're very successful with it. So just the guys he recruits, the guys he brings in, he just brings a lot of things to this program. It's really been remarkable what he's done.
Yeah.
What would you say is kind of the identity of this Yukon team? Like on the other side, when we preview Michigan and Arizona, it's pretty clear that both teams, they don't shoot a lot of threes, points in the paint. What is the kind of snapshot of Yukon?
I think a lot of the season, their defense was certainly a lot better than it was last year when they got bounced in the second round. They brought in 2 point guards. Point guard was a big issue for them last year. They brought in Silas Demery Jr. from Georgia, who's just a tough, winning player. He's been really good as their point guard, first team All Big East player. He's instilled a little bit of a toughness. I would say that, the toughness that you think of a Yukon team, a Dan Hurley coach team, maybe they don't necessarily have that. But I guess to answer your question, I would say maybe it's just the overall depth in terms of they don't have a first team. They don't even have a third team All-American. They don't have anyone who's destined to be an NBA star with a possible potential, I guess, of Braylon Mullins, but he's only a freshman. Yet they just get different guys stepping up each night. And Alex Caravan, the most decorated player in college basketball right now, 2 national titles, trying to get number 3. He's stepped up too, and in this tournament, and he provides leadership. So it's kind of a great mix of veteran leadership, young talent, returning talent, and just overall a bunch of different guys who can hurt you any night.
All right, so what stands out to you about this matchup with Illinois? Obviously, is from a Big 12 perspective, we've seen this Illinois team, and they're really big. The size is a huge piece. What stands out to you in this matchup?
The size. I mean, there'll be a bigger front line than Taris Reed has gone up against. Although he's beaten some pretty big front lines already this tournament. Obviously, Yukon and Illinois played back in Thanksgiving weekend. Now, both teams were very different at the time. Reed had just come back from an injury. Braylon Mullins was literally making his college debut in that game at Madison Square Garden. Illinois had different rotations. Wagler hadn't really quite emerged as a star he's become. So, in a little bit, you kind of throw a lot out the window from that first meeting. I think it comes down with Yukon. It always comes down to a few different things. One of which is taking care of the ball. When they turn the ball over, like most teams, they lose. They had big turnover games against St. John's twice, and they lost those 2 games. They got to, maintain good ball possession and making shots. And I know sometimes it's just that simple. They haven't shot the ball great from 3. Taris Reed saved their bacon against Duke by dominating inside, but they missed 17 of their first 18 3-pointers, and they got hot at the very right time at the end. But you got to feel like a guy like Solo Ball is ready to finally start making some threes. Braylon Mullins hit the big shot, but he has struggled from 3 otherwise. Some of these guys maybe are due for a breakout. So that I would say, shooting the ball and taking care of the ball, there are 2 of their bigger things.
Dave, it's fascinating to me that we've got a team in the Final Four that's been there 3 of the last 4, yet the national narrative has kind of been that Michigan-Arizona is the national championship game. How does that sit with with Yukon fans and kind of that extra layer of motivation?
Yeah, that plays into what I said with Dan Hurley, the chip on his shoulder, always thinking that Yukon is being underrated, undervalued. He'll use this, no question about it. I believe that they are, Illinois is the favorite going into Saturday night's game, even though Yukon is the higher seed and had the better record and beat them earlier in the season. It's crazy, but yeah, I don't know if Dan Hurley would want it any other way. Like again, he uses it as a motivational tool. I know the fans, like you mentioned, the fans think that Yukon constantly gets short shrifted by the national media, and certainly the fact that they haven't been invited to a Power 4 conference yet, which most people think is long overdue. A lot of different things add up to the idea that with Yukon fans and with Dan Hurley that the Huskies are kind of overlooked.
All right, so what do you think happens in this game?
Right now, it's just so hard for me to think Yukon. You sort of, pick against Yukon, I guess, if I were a betting man.
Yeah.
They find ways to win. Alex Karabin is 17-1 in NCAA tournament games. It's kind of ridiculous. I feel like like I said, some guys are due to start to get hot, and if that happens, then you're not going to need a 35-footer at the end of regulation to win. It's just hard for me to believe that they won't get by Illinois. Now, Michigan or Arizona could be a different story. That's going to be really tough if that happens. But it's hard for me to see Yukon losing this game.
Yeah, agreed.
Why isn't Yukon in a power conference?
Well, it really, I guess, in one word, it's football. Obviously, the program had struggled terribly for about an eight-year stretch when it was one of the worst programs in Division I. And now, before that, it was competitive and at time went to bowl games. And since then, it's been going to bowl games. And even though it's an independent now and playing, a schedule, a non-conference, all non-conference schedule because they're not in a conference, they've been to bowl games recently. So they're on the upswing a little bit. But I guess, these leagues don't think that their football program is enough to warrant inclusion in their league. And I think that's the main thing. I mean, it's why Louisville was chosen over them 15 years ago or so, or 10 years ago. And it's why, lesser programs like Rutgers got Big Ten invitations and so many different examples. It's weird, but I think football is probably the number one thing.
Yeah, great point. Great stuff. Dave Borges, Yukon men's basketball beat writer for CT Insider. Thanks for your time. Enjoy Indy.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care.
Dave Borges joining us here, breaking down his thoughts on Yukon and Illinois. And hard to disagree with him. How could you bet against Yukon in the tournament at this stage? Because of how good they've been.
Right, and Dan Hurley, it's been, I think, underrated what he's done with this team this season. So you have back-to-back national titles in 23 and 24. Well, he admitted to ESPN that he went all in on chasing a three-peat. He's got bracelets inscribed with Dynasty, Chicago Bulls, three-peat, film sessions, a wooden book. And then Yukon finishes third in the Big East, and they go out in the second round as an 8 seed. So he completely had to reset. Just 2 years removed from a national championship. And it's process over perfection, and this new philosophy and this new roster construction. And that was my first takeaway watching Yukon. I think it was their second round game against UCLA, because I had picked UCLA to pull the upset. They were really hot coming into the tournament. Yukon had just been throttled by St. John's in the Big East tournament. I thought maybe an upset. And I turned that game on, and I'm like, okay, Yukon has dudes. Like, I know about Caravan, I know about Reed, but you just look at their roster, and they are super athletic. They look a lot like Florida did last year. So from that point forward, it's no surprise to me what they've done. Now, the comeback was historic and epic and all the things, but he has a really, really good roster, and it's just so shocking to me that, and I don't know if it's because they're a 2 seed. I mean, they're 33-5, right? Because the Big East is down outside of Yukon and St. John's, that they're almost deemed as an underdog. and that they're not even favored in this game against Illinois. Like that, I cannot wrap my mind around it.
Here's the most maybe interesting number to look at. 19 of last 21 NCAA champs were top 10 in Ken Palm offense. The only team left that is not top 10 in Ken Palm offense is
UConn.
They were 20-8th. Illinois first, Arizona fourth, Michigan fifth. I said 19 of 21. You know who those two exceptions are?
UConn.
2011 UConn and 2014 UConn. Now, that's pre-Dan Hurley UConn. But it's interesting. 19 of the last 21 champs were top 10 in Ken Palm offense. The only one that's not this year is UConn, and the only two exceptions to that are UConn in 2011 and UConn in 2014.
That's amazing. Now, UConn also, they're the third best defensive team, just trailing Michigan and Arizona. They are by far the slowest paced team in this tournament. They want to grind you out. They are 319th in the country in adjusted tempo. They want to extend possessions. They get a lot of offensive rebounds, and they're shooting the ball much better now than they were at certain stages during the season. I think they are, the only difference between this UConn team and those last two that won titles was just how they were beating people in the NCAA tournament. Like those other two teams were just destroying people in the NCAA tournament. This UConn team had to have a little bit of luck on their side, call it what it is, a 40-footer. I mean, you hit that shot maybe 2 or 3 times out of 10, but they're here. And now that they're here, both games are total coin flips to me. Like the lines are around 2.5. I mean, these are going to come down to the final minute, both Final Four games.
I've never been more confident in Arizona beating Illinois in the national championship.
Okay. You manifesting it?
No, I think what you just said, people will look at some of the history here and be like, oh, UConn can do it, and that great coach. This is not, this is a very good UConn team. This is a lot, I think, further than many people had them going, given kind of the limitations of the team this year. Mm-hmm. I think the road ends here for UConn. As much as we want to lean on history here, Dan Hurley's a really good coach. There's talent. To me, I think Illinois wins. In fact, I think that one's easier to pick than Michigan and Arizona.
Well, that one has a slightly larger line, but something about
Well, I didn't say anything about UConn covering, but I think Illinois wins it straight up. Illinois is going to win that game.
Something about UConn in the
Just remember to tell me you were right.
Okay.
You were right.
Okay. And if you're wrong, I'll be sure to tell you that, too.
I won't be. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn. Watched on Big 12 Studios. We answer the most important question in a little let's get it on next. And that's not a let's get it on. It's more of a let's get it on.
It's very aggressive.
Next.
Extra people.
One-on-one. Backdoor bounce and a scoop for Del Orso. Reverse layup makes it 22.
Little step and go. Big time delivery.
Haggerty had it taken away. It's a run out the other direction. And a slam the hammer from Karchenkov.
Now this is the problem when you play this team.
It made something out of nothing.
Ivan Karchenkov works the baseline.
Oh, man. He's another one of those freshmen. They play 4 freshmen.
It's pretty clear Arizona State defensively trying to pack the lane and dare Arizona to beat him from the outside. But Karchenkov, the freshman, says no.
35 and 33 minutes. Getting back to full health.
This is a great time.
Karchenkov off the turnover.
What they want to do is just get out quicker from those elbows and blocks to get to a shooter.
Bradley to a cutting Karchenkov. Taken away by Karchenkov. Karchenkov answers. Second half are on a pair of threes from Chase McCarty. Karchenkov will try one and hit it.
Well, you give up a three, just go on the other end and get it back.
Kristanek Jr. really moving his feet to stay in front of Karchenkov. Birdies can't get by Flemings. Karchenkov banks home a 3. Are you kidding me?
Big 12 Radio will be live on site in Indianapolis. Cannot wait to get out there. Player interviews, insights. We're taking you front and center. We are giving you the press pass to the Final Four following Arizona and their run for a national championship, along with James Wesley, Amari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Make sure to join us on our journey to Indianapolis. Should be a lot of fun. Again, and we are going to be live on Saturday, doing a special Saturday edition of Big 12 Today from the Team Hotel in Indianapolis.
Correct.
Should be a lot of fun.
It's the Westin, which are very nice hotels.
I was just trying to protect the anonymity of Arizona.
Super bougie. Hey, there's a lot of Westins in Indianapolis. They could be anywhere, but it's going to be awesome. I don't
know if you want to give the address and room numbers,
the
too.
cat's out of the bag. What are we going to do the show on Saturday from an undisclosed hotel location? It's fine. Everybody knows where everybody's staying. There's extensive security in place, I'm sure. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. No, we need it for sure. We need that extensive security. All right, it's time now for Let's Get It On. Here's our producer, Will Connerly. Producer Will, standing 7 feet, 11 inches tall.
Why does he? What? Will looks like an NFL offensive lineman at that desk.
Will looks like Andre the Giant, but bigger at that desk.
He's never been more intimidating. He has a very intimidating presence about him in the best way.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I'd like to think more tight end, but I'll take offensive line.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Edge rusher. All right, what do you got for us?
Yeah, rumor has it is we're getting it on here in this segment. So first one, we're going to focus on a topic.
Easy, Will. Easy.
We're not getting it on?
Go ahead.
He's a child, Will. Keep going.
Well, we're going to keep it on the hardwood because we've been talking about the Final Four, so we have to have some topics about basketball, especially the Wildcats. First up, who will have the bigger impact for Arizona in the Final Four? Will it be Jaden Bradley? Saw him so clutch in the Big 12 tournament. Most outstanding player, had the game winner, or the freshman, Koa Pete, who's been outstanding as well.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I will take Jaden Bradley, the Arizona guard. I think Koa Pete is going to be neutralized. Even if he has 15 or 20 points and continues this postseason surge, Jaden Bradley, to me, is the most important player on the floor. He's the Big 12 Player of the Year for a reason, and he'll be matched up more than likely, even though Arizona does a lot of switching, with Elliot Cadeau, the Michigan point guard who just got wheeled to an ambulance yesterday because of an allergic reaction from something he ate. Also, Jaden Bradley, like you think about when Arizona's had to have big plays, it's come from Bradley. Game winner in the Big 12 tournament against Iowa State. He scored 10 of his 14 points in the second half in the Elite Eight win over Purdue, and then completely shut down Braden Smith, the Purdue All-American point guard, in the second half. So for me, it's Bradley.
Yeah, this isn't even close. Who's the mop? James? Who was the most outstanding player in the West region? It's got to be Koa Pete here. I mean, the numbers are undeniable. He's up from 14 points a game in the regular season to 17.5 points in the tournament. He's shooting 54% with 7 rebounds and 2 assists per game in the tournament. He has turned up the scoring to 11 in the tournament. And this one even goes to 12 for Koa Pete. The main point I'll make on this is we've talked so much about three-point shooting in Arizona and how not impactful it is for them. Well, Koa Pete is one of those pieces from an interior scoring presence that unlocks their ability to bludgeon teams to death and not have to count on threes. Pete, now they've got other guys that could do that, and Bradley's one of them, but I think nobody unlocks it quite like Koa Pete.
Let's get it on!
Jaden Bradley, Big 12 Player of the Year. That was like 5 months ago, James. I want my mop. Give me the mop.
Well, there was an interesting topic because for Bradley, and I think this sparked something else for me, is very underrated, I think, nationally as well. I think he started to get his respect as of late, but he's perhaps, and I'd love your guys' thoughts on who the most underrated player left in the Final Four right now. Who's not getting enough love in your guys' eyes?
Ooh, this was not on the rundown. Caught me by surprise. Tommy Lloyd still hates me because I called Jaden Bradley underrated back in November. I don't think he'll ever forget it. I definitely won't. Who's the most underrated player left in the field?
Let's get it on!
I would say Ivan Karchinkov. I mean, he's been massive for Arizona. He leads the team in steals. He can guard basically 4 of the 5 positions. He's a guy that doesn't avoid foul trouble, and also he's had some really clutch baskets. He's not really a three-point shooter, but he's the guy that can really finish at the basket that starts out on the perimeter. So for me, it's Karchinkov. I think he's the most underrated, like, X-factor guy for Arizona.
Is this Arizona specifically or just the most underrated player? So Karchinkov's a great call.
Let's get it on!
So for the sake of disagreeing with you here, I'll go Mara for Michigan because, I mean, so many other players are highlighted, and I just think his ability at 7'3" as a passer, 5 assists per game in the tournament is a ridiculous number for a guy that's 7'3". Because I think we talk about the scoring, we talk about the blocked shots, but it's his ability to collapse defenses because of his size in the interior and pass that gives him a different ability. Now, I will say, you're almost at the point where don't collapse on him, play him one-on-one, don't allow him to become a passer, and live with his ability to score the inside.
Which is what I think Arizona will do.
Yeah.
I think Mo Krivas is going to lock him down. That's maybe the biggest one-on-one matchup in that game.
Well, I appreciate you guys fielding my curveball. I know you talk about me playing football, but I was a baseball player, so I thought broadcast professionals could handle at least one curveball, but we'll go back to the rundown.
We can't.
And
Are you out of your mind, Will? If you ever do that again, I'll kill you.
So for the panic, Final Four coming up.
Like going through my notes, like, huh? Underrated? Final Four?
Same.
Who's in the Final Four?
We have no idea.
It's Arizona and, oh, God, who else is in the Final Four?
Oh, man. Okay, so Arizona.
That's amazing.
If they get to the national
Well, I
championship.
can't chew gum and walk at the same time.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's tough. Who is a better matchup for Arizona if they get to the national championship game? Illinois or Yukon?
All right, you take the lead on this one.
Curveball, I need you to put it on a tee for me. I can't even hit a fastball that goes straight.
We do this show with a teleprompter, Will. For 3 hours, we're just reading what's on the screen.
Not only can I not hit a curveball, I can't even hit the ball that's coming at me. It needs to be placed on a tee in front of me, and then maybe I'll hit it.
Panic. You just went dead silent.
Maybe I'll hit it.
Will throws the question out. You just crickets.
I go.
Like, okay, I guess I'll take the lead on this one.
Basketball. They're playing.
It's not my turn, but sure.
They're playing
Because this guy just
basketball.
We're in the corner in the fetal position. Like
these teams play basketball. There's dribbling and shooting and James, you? Okay, what was the question here? I'm sorry.
Who's the better matchup for Arizona? If they get to the national title game, who is a better matchup for the Wildcats, Illinois or Yukon?
Well, I just said in the last segment that Illinois is going to win that game. I've never been more confident about it than ever before. So I'll say,
pump the brakes. Pump the brakes.
All right, Mills. Easy, Mills. I'm getting it on, Mills.
Give this guy a seizure. Okay?
I am getting it on, okay?
HSOs.
So I'm going to say Yukon.
Okay.
Yukon's easier because I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they're going to beat Illinois. I think Illinois is the better team. They're the tougher matchup.
Yeah, better matchup for Arizona is Illinois. Because Illinois got those international finesse basketball, ballerina-like footwork in the lane with those 7-footers, and Arizona is just going to attack them.
What is this, 1998?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've paid attention, but it's European players are the better players now.
Yes, European players are very good now, but the Illinois international flavors very still finesse style of basketball, as is Wagler. They don't want to bang. They don't want to be physical. They don't score a ton of points in the paint. They're really good on the glass, but that's where they use their height. Teams have not been able to take advantage of that. Houston was the more physical team, but Houston also was about 4 or 5 inches smaller at every position. That won't be the case for Arizona. Arizona has the height. They have the strength. They have the attacking mentality on the boards. I think Illinois is by far the more favorable matchup for Arizona.
All right, this too, another topic that is on the rundown. No surprises here. We're talking about Arizona again. Is Tommy Lloyd staying put? Obviously, the blue blood rumors swirling. You guys mentioned an elephant in the room earlier on. If that impacts the locker room, but will he be the head coach at Arizona next season? Yes or no?
Yes. Tommy Lloyd will be the next coach at Arizona. This is so overblown. Billy Donovan's basically already inked the deal to be the next coach at North Carolina. So it's going to be Billy Donovan. It will not be Tommy Lloyd. This is a leverage play, and the media is just fueling it, and the fans being worried about him leaving. He's 146-35 in his 5 seasons. No coach has ever started their career at that level. There's no way that Desiree Reed-Francois is going to let him walk out the door. She's doing everything possible to retain Lloyd. Arizona's a basketball factory. They're going to come up with the support. Whatever Tommy Lloyd needs, he'll be the coach at Arizona moving forward.
81%. 81%.
It's a B. Minus.
146-35. Tommy Lloyd has won 81% of his games at Arizona.
It's insane.
I'd love to be in the meeting where Tommy Lloyd's like, hey, these are the things I need, blah, blah, blah.
And they're like, can you just win some more games?
No, Tommy. We're not gonna give you any of that. Yeah, he stays. Tommy Lloyd will be in Arizona for more than 2 decades. Mark my words.
All right, we'll keep it on the coaching train, and we're going to be talking about Kelvin Sampson or Bill Self. Who will retire first? 2 legends, obviously both coming back next season, but rumors were swirling. Bill Self, 23 years at the helm at Kansas, 33 seasons coaching NCAA Division I basketball, 37 seasons for Kelvin Sampson overall, and a dozen at Houston. Who retires first?
Wow, Will's trying to retire two legends right now. I mean, Sampson and Bill Self? What, you want to retire them?
I don't want to.
I'm going to say Self retires first. And that's only because Kelvin Sampson is still winning at a very high level. Look, Kansas is going to have a very good recruiting class next year. They're going to have high expectations. I mean, I think the hidden secret here is that there's going to be some people with some big pockets that may want to be retiring Bill Self if they have another disappointing season again next year. The standard in Kansas is a lot different than the standard everywhere else. And losing in the first weekend is not acceptable.
So I've got to make the case for Kelvin Sampson retiring first?
Yes, you do.
Sampson turns 71 this October. His contract currently runs through the 2027-28 season, which is 2 years from now. He's been a head coach since 1981, 45 years on the sideline. So, if I'm making the case that Kelvin Sampson retires first, I'm going to say that next year is a little bit of a rebuild, but they're young, they're inexperienced, and then 2 years from now, all those guys come back. Mercy Miller's a senior, Chase McCarty's a senior, and they make whatever transfers they bring in that are underclassmen, Polamailo Suzanne, and they come back one more year to play for Houston, and they make a run at a national championship 2 years from now. He finally gets to the pinnacle. Houston, 2028 national champions, and he rides off into the sunset and retires at the end of, when his contract is up, the end of the 2027-28 season. His son takes over. He's got his natty, and he's out.
All right, go ahead.
You got it.
Let's get it on.
You.
Along with James Wesley, I'm Ari Tepkin, Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. We're talking with Wolverine on 3 reporter Anthony Broom next about Michigan and Arizona. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
BYU Villanova. We'll get our first look at A.J. DeBonsa as Koa Pete on the receiving end.
Execution on that possession from Florida.
Xavier Lee hits his second 3 of the night. Oh! Koa Pete from the rafters!
What a pass and delivery against Condon.
Here comes Bradley. Bradley gives it to Pete. Pete, look out below! One highlight after another! Mr. Arizona has arrived at the collegiate level.
Utah steal, then they throw it right back to the Wildcats. NASCAR tempo, a lob, and Pete brings the house down.
Senior out of Rickards High School, Tallahassee, that venerable program. Pete the screen for Karchenkov, and they'll play it together for 2 and a foul. Rebound pawed down by Krivas. On the hit ahead, Pete. Duck.
Woo-hoo! How about the outlet pass? Here's the end of the play.
Johnson will. Yeah, he will. And he hit the backboard.
Numbers here.
Burries. Flanked by Pete and a hammer.
Bringing it all. The Chandeliers as well. They can be explosive.
And look at his work on Mo Krivas down low.
The lob. Oh, watch out. High above the rim.
Bradley trying to find one of his bigs. He gets it to Pete. Pete off balance. Fires!
Oh, what a shot.
Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Today. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We'll be out in Indianapolis for the Final Four. Join us for our pregame show on Saturday, 3 Central, 4 Eastern. Let's talk now with Arizona's opponent in the Final Four, Anthony Broom, covers the Wolverines for Wolverine on 3. Anthony, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate your time. And where I want to start in this matchup is with three-point shooting. Arizona, it's well documented, not a high-volume three-point shooting team. But defensively, it's really interesting because they're so good in two-point defense. They force a ton of threes and still limit opponents to a low three-point shooting percentage. Where's Michigan on that spectrum?
In this tournament, they've shot the three as well as they have all year. And they've done a decent job of not, if the threes aren't falling, they'll try to get those easy twos that they've been able to get. Though, again, I don't think there are going to be any easy buckets in this game that they'll play Saturday. But, for all the discourse that there was about the Wilson ball that everyone's used in the tournament, Michigan has been as good from three in these 4 games as they've been all year consistently. So, the thing I'll say is that, yeah, they're a lot more reliant on the three, I guess, than compared to Arizona. But, this team has played a lot of different styles of games, too, in the Big Ten. You've got teams that want to slow you down and take the threes away. You played some track meets here in the tournament where where they've fared pretty well in these high-tempo sort of shootout types of games. So, typically within the first couple minutes, they tend to kind of know what the rules of engagement are going to be and what type of game they find themselves in. But certainly I think a big key to this game Saturday will be how well Michigan does shoot it from beyond the arc.
Yeah, Michigan, winning its first 4 tournament games by an average of almost 23 points speaks for itself. Has it just been an uptick across the board in the tournament, or what are they doing so much better here in the postseason compared to the Big Ten tournament in the regular season?
Well, right now it seems like the Big Ten tournament was just a blip on the radar. They haven't really had a streak of consecutive games in terms of just not looking like themselves like they did that weekend. But I think the magical sort of elixir for them has been getting out against teams that want to run again. And if you want to get into a track meet with Michigan, they will oblige you. I think they share the ball super well. I think that, when they're able to get up and down the floor and get downhill, that's when they're best as well. And I just think that, the Big Ten style, which, we know what the conference's reputation is kind of plodding, super low tempo type of league it is in the aggregate. I really think the ability for them to get out and run these last couple weekends has helped unlock the gear that, we saw for most of the Big Ten season, but certainly not quite as much down the stretch. So I think that's been the biggest key is one, not just shoot the ball well, but, they're playing against teams that play a little more their speed as well.
What's the status of Elliot Cadeau?
Seems like everything's fine. Just a bit of a scare yesterday with, potential food allergy thing. Just got checked out, cleared by the doctor. He made his way down, so he's down there with the team already. So I don't anticipate any lingering effects from that. When it first pops across your timeline, you're looking at what day it is. It's April 1st. You're seeing if you got. But
right.
Yeah, bit of an interesting plot twist yesterday. But all hands on deck, and everyone's down in Indy now.
All right, so help us sound really smart this weekend. We know about the stars, Lindeborg and Cadeau and Mara, the center. Who's the X factor for Michigan?
I think there's a couple guys. For me, it starts with Perez Johnson Jr. I think when he's really locked in and playing well, he's been described as like their floor player. Like when he comes and brings it, it just raises their level of play so frequently. And it's been 2 out of the last 3 weekends where we've been near his hometown in Illinois where he hasn't played as well, but I thought he was outstanding in Buffalo a couple weekends ago. He's been great for most of the year. I mean, he sets the mentality on the boards. He sets it defensively. You know, when he's at his best, Michigan is at its best. So for me, it starts with him, and then you're going to have your guys off the bench too. Your Roddy Gales, your Trey McKinney. You know, Elliot Cadeau, since LJ Case's injury, has been playing 35 minutes, 37 minutes, 38 minutes a night when he hasn't been in foul trouble. But when Michigan's tried to give him a rest, or when fouls have put him on the bench, Gale and McKinney have played extremely well and really been net positives for them, you know, in the month of March. So those would be the guys that I'd have circled headed into this weekend.
Anthony, what do you think is the game within the game here? Like, what are the most important matchups for you?
I think it's the front line against the front line. You know, two teams where you look at the KenPom profile, and you know, we talked about the outlier of the three-point shooting discrepancy, but I believe top two defenses in the country. You know, both top 6, 7 offenses. You know, Arizona is the one team, and there have been other teams, but really, when you look at a size and a frontline talent perspective, I think matches up fairly well with Michigan. So I think, you know, the 2-point offense, 2-point defense, two things that these teams are both really good at. You know, outside of the 3-point shooting, I think that's going to be what determines this game.
How is Michigan on the glass, on the offensive glass, and just rebounding overall?
You know, they've been up and down at times. You know, it's been matchup dependent too. You know, there's a game that they played a game at Mackey Arena against Purdue a month or so ago where they completely dominated Purdue on the glass. And, you know, a game at Illinois, same deal, the night that they clinched the outright Big Ten title. You know, this last Sunday, they played a Tennessee team where offensive rebounding was their bread and butter, and Michigan not only kind of neutralized that, but kept them well under the percentage of getting their own misses that they usually are. So they've done a nice job there. It's matchup dependent. You know, as long as, you know, Amara stays out of foul trouble, Perez Johnson stays out of foul trouble, I think that they'll hold up there pretty well this weekend.
Are you in Indy?
I am en route, about an hour outside of Indy right now. Yep.
What's the drive from Ann Arbor to Indianapolis?
It's about 4 hours, a little bit less. If you know, you hit your stride and there's not a lot of traffic, which thankfully that's the way it's been today. So yeah, about 4 hours. And we've made this drive a lot the last couple of years. You know, football has been down there for Big Ten championship games, a couple of Big Ten tournaments down there. So it's almost like our second home at this point.
Yeah, no kidding. So how does, I mean, obviously Michigan football it's tough to top in terms of fandom, but how does Michigan basketball compare fandom-wise?
You know, for postseason, they travel very well. You know, Chrysler Center, where they play their games, isn't necessarily seen as one of the better environments of the Big Ten. I do think fans will show up for big games, but you know, it is still a football-first school. But you know, whenever Michigan has been on months like this, you know, 2013, 2018, their fans have done a heck of a job showing out wherever it is. Like I said, quick drive down from Ann Arbor. I think there's going to be a good representation of Michigan fans. You know, you've got another school at the Final Four in Illinois that's a drive away from Indianapolis as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of maize and blue, a lot of blue and orange. And, you know, I know all the fan bases will travel well, but, you know, it's very drivable for both those Big Ten schools.
Anthony, while we have you, you know, it's not often that we get to talk to a Michigan guest, and by often I mean ever. So give us a little bit of a sense. How do the fans feel about the Kyle Whittingham hire? Like, what are they excited about, and then where is there maybe some hesitation?
Competency, gravitas, physicality, discipline, all things that they had a couple years ago under Jim Harbaugh. But you know, you guys know now, being Big 12 guys and going back to the Pac-12 with Utah, what type of program he runs and what type of program that Michigan will probably have here in the next couple of years. And, you know, frankly, maybe a lot more talent on the recruiting trail they'll have access to. So it's been refreshing. I think we were all just excited to cover, you know, just cover a football team instead of brushing up on our legal jargon and the NCAA rule book and things like that. So, yeah, the early turns have been really positive, and they've got a tough schedule this fall, but I do think that the bones of a playoff team are there. And, you know, Kyle Whittingham's age has been the big storyline. I don't know how long he's going to be there, but I think he's going to win a lot at Michigan, however long it lasts.
Yeah, just some word to the wise here, Anthony, as somebody that's going to cover him. Take everything he says with a grain of salt.
Well, it's all coach speak. We've gotten used to that with all these football coaches over the years. They guard their info like the nuclear launch code. So,
and honestly, he's even worse. Like and that's true, but he's even worse. I'm telling you, almost treat everything he says like it's a lie. I think you'll be better off that way.
Okay, well, we'll keep that in mind. But, you know, everyone's still kind of asking about his workout streaks and what's going to get Michigan and all that. So we'll get into the nitty-gritty here soon enough with spring ball wrapping up in a few weeks.
True. And look, I think everything you said is completely right. Competency, like Michigan needed an adult in the room given what's transpired. Obviously, with Sherrod Moore, he was the perfect hire in the perfect spot. I'm just saying, like, he's going to win a lot of games, but just don't believe anything he says.
Well, you know, if he wins a lot of games, our people are going to like that. So we'll translate accordingly.
You're the best. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it very much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Anthony Broom, Wolverine on 3, joining us here on Big 12 Radio on his way from Ann Arbor to Indianapolis. 4-hour drive. It's about 2 hours from Champaign to Indianapolis. Very much Big Ten country with 2 Big Ten teams in the Final Four. We'll get into the narrative around the Big Ten and this Final Four on the way next in our final whistle. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Play through those post guys, screens, pick and roll, high-low, everything.
Burries tries. That's a 3, and it'll go. Braden Burries.
Not a
Shot
mismatch.
clock under 10.
They have Pete if they want him.
Burries step back. Gets another.
Never mind. Don't worry about Pete.
You saw that Penn State game, obviously. It's surprising.
Oh, what a find. Burries the stuff.
He makes plays now. He's done that a few times. Got to get away from him. Yep.
Bradley knew he had it. Just picked his pocket.
Nice pass.
Burries the stuff, guard to guard.
About that. All set up by defense.
Bradley got tangled up in gridlock with Castillo, and he threads it through beautifully. Scintillating pass to Burries.
Vision is extraordinary.
Just under 21 a game. One chipped away. Cadeau goes down to the floor. Loose ball. Privas push up ahead. Burries throws it down.
Terrific play by the big fella.
Just kind of flung it up. No good. Burries draws the foul. Hits the shot. Prospects in this game. Karchenkov hustles and gets the rebound and finds Burries! Oh my goodness! Oh! What a dunk from the freshman guard!
The very talented freshman got space and put him on a poster. But this game concerned about complacency tonight, and they have gotten haymakers thrown at them. But there's Braden Burries giving Arizona the lead.
Big 12 Radio. Big 12 today. That man over there, James Westling. Me, I'm Ari Temkin. On social, at Ari Sports. You can get at James on both Instagram and X at James Westling. You can also, at Ari Sports as well.
You can find me at Ari Sports. I'm all over that.
Do it, yeah. Follow James for me, or follow me for James. Either way.
See a lot of us both.
We're going to be out at the Final Four in Indianapolis. Make sure to listen to our pregame show for the Final Four, taking you right up the tip-off between Yukon and Illinois, which you can catch as a part of TuneIn. So make sure if you've not already, download the TuneIn app, search Big 12 Radio, listen to us from basically 3 to 5 Central, 4 to 6 Eastern.
3 to 4:30 Central Time.
Got it.
90 minutes.
Thought we were pre-recording the final 30 minutes.
Action-packed. Maybe we are.
Going right up to tip-off of Yukon and Illinois.
Maybe we are doing that.
Yeah.
So either way, it would be, that would make it a 2-hour show.
James doesn't seem confused at all.
I'm not.
Never confused.
I'm looking at the plan. The plan says 3 to 4:30. I don't know.
We're starting at 3 Central. We go until whenever. And, of course, you can catch the games on Westwood One Radio on TuneIn. James Westling, Ari Temkin, and we'll have plenty of player interviews, lots of fun stuff. Make sure to make plans to join us pre-Final Four. Listen to us on TuneIn. Watch us on Big 12 Studios. Should be a lot of fun. Can't wait to get out there. Any final thoughts? I want to get into this Dan Wetzel piece for ESPN, basically talking about how this Final Four indicates a streak of dominance coming for the Big Ten that I think is equal parts hilarious and equal parts wrong.
Yeah. I haven't read the piece, and I can tell you that. Like, how many Big 12 schools have been in the Final Four in the last 6-7 tournaments? And it's not the same banger. It's not the same team every year. Baylor, Texas Tech, Kansas, 2 of those 3 have won national championships. Houston, Arizona. We talked about who's the next. Maybe Iowa State, maybe BYU.
Or maybe a repeat.
Maybe a repeat. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
So Dan Wetzel from ESPN argues that the Big Ten dominance might be here to stay. You know, basically pulling from the football side of things and look at how dominant they become in football, and now this is about to happen in basketball. And the argument that Wetzel makes is, one, now that every school can pay players, either through direct revenue share or via name, image, and likeness dollars, Big Ten schools are no longer disadvantaged in recruiting by everything from booster bag men to shoe company AAU connections. So the basically what he is, the narrative he's pushing is like the Big Ten is clean, okay? It always has been. It's the Big Ten, right? Like, come on, they're the cleanest of the clean. And so therefore, now that everybody's paying players, they're at a strategic advantage because in a world where things aren't clean, the Big Ten is going to be at a disadvantage. But in a world where everything is clean and above board with paying players, now they're at a huge advantage because they can finally pay players. Never mind the fact that somehow they got the Fab Five at Michigan. Can't imagine there were some under-the-table dealings in that situation. I'm sure all of those guys went to Michigan out of the love of Michigan and for no other reason, right? I mean, of course, they're never paying players.
Weren't all the Fab Five wins vacated?
Oh, yeah.
Like
that. But even if they weren't, like, I'm supposed to be under some impression that there weren't something extra going on? Come on. Don't be ridiculous. The other thing is that Wetzel points to is the European import dynamic. You know, that basically specifically Brad Underwood credits NIL money for allowing Illinois to land top-quality European players who would have otherwise chosen professional contracts over college basketball. You know, which is also the case with many Big 12 schools, including Arizona.
Right. In fact, Arizona has more international players on its roster than anybody else in the country. And by far more than anybody else in the Big 12.
Weird. So, again, Dan Wetzel writes a piece basically about how Big Ten's dominance might be here to stay, and it's built on a web of lies. Not only that, inaccuracies, making quite the far jump. And, I mean, so I think, like, the most obvious piece here is the Big Ten has not won any national championship since 2000. That's part of what this article is basically going off of. Have they not made a Final Four since 2000?
The Big Ten?
Yeah.
Well, Michigan made it in 2018.
Yeah, no, I mean, the answer is They've made plenty of Final Fours since 2000.
Yeah, sorry. I was reading about Tommy Lloyd beating the entire Big Ten to the blueprint of bringing in international players. Go ahead.
I mean, Ohio State lost to Kansas in the 2012 Final Four with Jared Sullinger before Kansas lost to Kentucky. Michigan in 2018. That's just a few off the top of my head. Michigan also made it with Trey Burke. Yeah, they the Big Ten has made it a lot of times. Illinois made it in 2005 when they lost to North Carolina. So, I'm supposed to believe now it's different? Now they've got two teams in the Final Four. It's totally different. This shows their dominance?
And if the Big 12 had not had the injury bad luck, I'm still convinced the Big 12 would have had more than one team in the Final Four. For me, that team was Texas Tech. I thought the way they were playing and losing JT Toppin, if he doesn't go down, especially watching this NCAA tournament, having a team with the combination of that perimeter shooting and that inside presence on the glass would have been a nightmare for opponents. Tommy Lloyd also beat everybody to the international blueprint when he was at Gonzaga. I mean, the guy's been doing it for 2 decades.
Yes.
And now everybody's catching on.
Yeah. I mean, the other part to this that I think is maybe the funniest counter argument to this argument about that Dan Wetzel's making is, so in the piece, Wetzel acknowledges, that the Big Ten is not keeping local kids within the conference, something that they used to do. He basically acknowledges that the two best high school recruits from the Midwestern area, Darren Peterson from Canton, Ohio, and Darius Acuff from Detroit, both chose Kansas and Arkansas respectively. So that's the core structural problem in a nutshell. The Big Ten still hasn't cracked the code on keeping its own backyard talent. And then Wetzel argues the workaround for that is European talent.
We just completely smashed that theory. Darren Peterson went to a Big 12 school. So did you say, was it the Big Ten hasn't won a natty since 2000?
Correct.
With Michigan State?
Michigan State's the last Big Ten team to win a natty.
It's a 26-year drought.
Yeah.
The Big 12 won back-to-back with Baylor and Kansas, and then...
Well, Kansas has won 2 in that period of time. Baylor has won 1.
Yeah. I was just thinking in the last 5 years.
Yeah,
and then
right.
Houston's basically a play away from winning a 3rd national championship for this conference. So It's cool to have contenders, but we have contenders and champions.
Well, and the idea of, the Big Ten may not be getting all those 5-star recruits domestically, but they're getting a ton of international prospects. Just look at Arizona. They have both. They've got Koa Pete and Braden Burries. They also have Karchenkov and Krivas. So funny.
And I had a nugget earlier about Arizona's freshmen. Yeah, the freshman factor. So they've got the international players. They've got the freshman factor as well. Okay, Koa Pete, Braden Burries, and Karchenkov are the 3rd freshman trio with at least 50 points each in the tournament going into the Final Four, ever, in the history of the sport. They're the first freshman group to do this since Kentucky in 2012, and that class was headlined by Anthony Davis. So there's no angle that freshman-led teams can't be this composed in March, or they're not as talented, because Arizona debunks that myth. And the whole, how many teams do you get to the Final Four? Every year, there's going to be leagues that produce in the tournament and leagues that don't. Some years, the Big 12 goes way further than its seed line. Other years, it doesn't. The Big 10 has been notorious for getting bounced early in the NCAA tournament. The last 1 seed, there's only been 2 ever, by the way, to lose to a 16 was Purdue, who rolled through the Big 10. That was just 2 years ago. 2024 NCAA tournament, right? Or 3 years ago, I should say. So this whole idea that, the Big 10, because of this run that they've had in the tournament, makes them a superior conference, I cannot get on board with that.
Well, and again, I think there's so far more counter arguments to this than there are arguments for it. And look, I mean, I'm sure at this point of the season, ESPN's editors go to Dan Wetzel and say,
Yes.
Dan, can you write something that's interesting?
Give us something about the Big Ten.
Just give us something
We've
interesting.
done enough Michigan previews. We've talked about Illinois. Let's just highlight the Big Ten.
Can you just give us something that's juicy? And he's like, okay, I guess I'll write something. And then he writes this dread.
I mean, they did have 6 teams in the Sweet 16. They've had a great year. Like, let's not, I'm not saying they haven't been really good in this tournament.
Yeah, but the SEC had a really good year last year.
Exactly. And the Big 12 has had really good years. The year that Kansas won the national championship in 22. Every year it's a different conference that just collectively, now in this new NIL era, this is going to happen more and more. Like the Big 12 could be the next conference that has 6 teams in the Sweet 16. You've got a team in the Final Four. The Big 12 is still, and if Arizona wins the national championship, I think it's very clear the second best league in America behind the NBA, which is what the commissioner, Brett Yormark, is pushing for. It's there. The data's there.
Yeah. It's just a funny thing to write when it's so easily proven wrong.
And I think of first round, like major upsets. A ton of Big Ten games and teams come to mind. Michigan State with Denzel Valentine. They were a 2 seed, but they were the hottest team coming in. They had been number 1 most of the year. They lost to a 15 seed. Middle Tennessee State in the first round. Like these massive upsets. Yeah, I know Arizona had one a few years ago when they were a 2 seed, but they weren't in the Big 12 back then. Oh, and now they're in the Final Four. Like it's just so up and down every year.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin lost in the national title game. Purdue lost in the national title game to Yukon in 2024, right? I mean, the Big Ten has had many bites at the apple since 2000. It's not like the changing of NIL and European prospects that are finally going to push them over the edge to get that championship since 2026. Since 2000. If they do, it would simply be because they finally had the coaching that could match wits with some of the other best coaches in the country. I would argue that the biggest reason for why the Big Ten has not won a title since 2000 is coaching. It's coaching. In the NCAA tournament, talent matters, but you get to this point, like, is there much of a discrepancy across the board in talent? I mean, Arizona's talented. So is Michigan. Mm-hmm. So is Yukon.
Yeah.
So is Illinois. These are 4 very talented teams. The great equalizer then is the coaching decisions you make within the game, how you scheme. That's, I think, why the Big Ten hasn't won a title in that period of time. They've gotten to the game. They haven't won it. Why? Coaching.
I think coaching, Kelvin Sampson talks a lot about you need a little bit of luck in the NCAA tournament. I believe that's a factor.
Yeah.
I mean, these games are so close. We're not even talking about UConn if they don't hit a 40-footer. We're talking about Duke being the historically best team to ever be in the Final Four. This piece should be more about how Michigan and Illinois assembled their rosters. And it is unique, but it's a step behind how Arizona assembled their roster. Like Michigan played the portal game. They've got 65% of their scoring, 66% of their rebounding, 74% of their assists were all guys that Dusty May brought in via the portal. They have like one returner who was part of that 8-24 team from 2 years ago. And then there's Illinois, who they've got the proximity to Chicago and St. Louis and Indianapolis. But they've targeted European talent, and they've found some hidden gems in Keaton Wagler. That's the same DNA as Iowa State. It's the same DNA as Arizona. Same DNA as Houston. In fact, Houston might be the outlier in that players simply just don't transfer out. They've had now 5 during Kelvin Sampson's tenure, with Isaiah Harwell being the 5th. Like that's to me, there's, what's the old saying that you like to bust out that I love so much? There's different ways to skin a cat. When I'm skinning cats, there's a variety of options to choose from.
More than one way to skin a cat, James. Everybody knows that.
And that's the same for college basketball. And some years it works, and some years it doesn't. I'm more fascinated by the analytical pieces of why the paint touches and points in the paint and rebounding and getting to the foul line. Those old school basketball factors are now at the forefront of just about everybody across the board. Definitely Arizona and Michigan leading the pack. That's more interesting to me than, the Big Ten's had a really good year.
Big Ten's the greatest. They're going to win all the championships moving forward.
Yeah.
All right, any final thoughts on this game? Again, we're going to be live from Indianapolis on Saturday for a pregame show on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios, so make sure to check us out there. We're bringing you front and center. Your press pass to the Final Four is with us on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios. Any final thoughts on the Final Four?
My final thoughts, I've got the Indianapolis Final Four travel guide.
Okay.
For those of us that will be in attendance, so stay tuned for that. That's it.
Oh, I think you were going to give us the travel guide.
I'm going to do it tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Ninth time that Indianapolis has hosted the men's Final Four. I've got the Big 12 radio itinerary.
Who's winning?
Arizona.
Arizona over?
Arizona over Yukon. I like Yukon in the Yukon Illinois game.
Perfect. Let's put $1,000 on Yukon and Illinois. I'll take Illinois. You take Yukon. $1,000. You just agreed to it. That's amazing. I'll take Arizona to beat Illinois. You've got Arizona over Yukon. Should be a fun Final Four, and we're bringing you close to the action. Again, join us Saturday show pregame. Tune in Big 12 Studios, starting at 3 Central, 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Thanks to Modelo for their partnership with us here at Big 12 Radio. Thanks, of course, to Will Connerly for producing. Thanks to Taman Turner. Thanks to Anthony Smith from Big 12 Studios. Thanks to James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. We're back on Saturday. Of course, back tomorrow. But for now, we're out. Peace.